Well, hello, my spookies. Welcome back to our holiday horror binge. Another Saturday, another long, shivery stretch of stories to keep you company while the tree glows and the wind claws at your windows. Tonight's stocking is stuffed with a father willing to do something unspeakable for the perfect Christmas, a lonely roadhouse where blood steams on the snow, a small town where Santa isn't coming, he's killing, and a young woman who feels something with hooves and thorns slip in behind her eyes and start making a Krampus list of its own. We've got cheerful home robots who learn that deck the halls can mean with your insides. Dark elves and bad decisions on a very silent night. A 12-day countdown in deep space where the only carols are the ship's dying alarms. A homecoming that turns Christmas dinner into a reckoning. And a psych ward where the tinsel hangs limp over restraints and locked doors. So pour your cocoa, check those locks, and settle in for another marathon of Christmas terror. And make sure you're subscribed because all December long, brand new shows are dropping every day until Christmas. All I Want for Christmas by Morgan Moore. A deathly chill blows through the night as light snow falls and gently blankets the ground. Cemetery gates creak open. Another gust of December wind blowing out of the hallowed grounds as they do so. The man who unlocked and opened the gates removes the key from the lock. In his other hand is a shovel. He looks into the cemetery and takes a deep breath, releasing it along with a sigh before walking in. The man in question was Jebediah Hawkins. Jebediah was a gravekeeper for the cemetery. He had a wife and a little girl. His reason for being in the cemetery tonight would never be anything of question. But it was Christmas Eve. Nobody worked in the cemetery on Christmas Eve or day. Jebediah walked through the cemetery, never wavering on his path. He was on a mission tonight, one he intended to complete. A few days ago, Jebediah was working a day shift. While he was cleaning in the funeral home that rested on the grounds, he spotted something that took his breath away. It was the body of a 6-year-old girl, the same age as his daughter. In her hands was a Tressie doll. Tressie dolls were the new toy of the year, selling like hotcakes, coming and going lickety-split. Every little girl wanted one, including Jebediah's daughter. Like many other parents, Jebediah and his wife had no luck finding the doll. Their daughter's birthday went by without her getting one. It broke the Hawkins' hearts to not be able to get the one thing their daughter wanted, the one thing she asked for in a childhood where she rarely, if ever, asked for anything. The two agreed that if either of them found a Tressie that, if they could, they would buy it on the spot. Unfortunately, their town was small, filled almost exclusively with small cell-phone stores. Stocks of the doll came and went in the blink of an eye, and out-of-town trips proved no better. The couple had just given up hope as Christmas approached, melancholic and ready to disappoint their daughter. Until Jebediah laid his eyes on the Tressie doll, clutched in the dead girl's hands. "Tragic, isn't it?" the undertaker asked. "Huh?" Jebediah asked in response. "Poor lass fell off a horse she was riding and got trampled to death, right before Christmas to boot. Such a shame," the undertaker explained as he walked away. "Yeah, a real shame," Jebediah answered. The next day, Jebediah watched as the girl was buried, the Tressie doll still in her hands. When he asked why they kept it, the undertaker told him that girl and doll went everywhere together, like they were the best of friends. Her parents thought it would be appropriate then that she went off to heaven with a friend so she wouldn't be lonely. It didn't take long for Jebediah to formulate his plan. Jebediah approached the grave of the little girl. More snow and wind blew around him, the cold cutting through to his bones. "Am I really about to do this?" he thought. He wanted to give his daughter a great Christmas, give her the one thing she asked for. Can I do this? His answer was an earth-piercing yes as he stabbed the shovel into the ground. He repeats the action again and again, throwing snow-covered dirt off to the side as he works his way deeper into the little girl's grave. Jebediah's mind blocked out all thoughts of the dead child he saw only a few days ago, instead conjuring up the image of his daughter with the doll, playing happily a few hours from now on Christmas Day. He thought of him and his wife sitting by the fire come nightfall, an extra happy Christmas behind them. It was these thoughts that kept Jebediah busy until he felt the shovel head slam into the coffin. Jebediah looked down at the small box. A gust of wind blew by and threw dirt down onto Jebediah and the coffin, almost as if the universe was telling him to stop. "I can't stop. Not now." Jebediah started to stab the coffin with the shovel. As the head struck the casket repeatedly, wood splintered and flew up. Jebediah kept at it for minutes before finally punching a hole through the coffin. He stared down into the breach and saw the little girl's face and the doll. The desperate father tossed the shovel out of the grave and knelt down beside the coffin. Jebediah gulped as he stared down at the girl's corpse. He reached into the coffin, grabbed the doll, and pulled up. Nothing budged. Jebediah tried again, but nothing moved. He looked closer as he kept trying to pull the doll out. The doll was clasped so tightly in her hands that it wouldn't budge. Every tug got him nowhere closer to getting the Tressie doll. The night was moving on and the temperature was dropping. Soon it would be midnight. Christmas. If he didn't get the doll back home in time, then Christmas would be ruined. Jebediah braced a foot against the coffin and grabbed the doll with both hands. He put all his strength into one big tug. The doll came free, and so did the hands of the little girl, still gripping the doll. Jebediah stared in horror at the image. He pried the hands off the doll and threw them back into the coffin. Jebediah stared down into the hole, into the coffin, and at the dead little girl, her hands laying on opposite ends of her body. The more he looked at her, the more she started to remind him of his own daughter. Jebediah felt a tinge of regret for what he'd done. What if his daughter was dead and someone dug up her body to get something? He looked down at the doll. All of this fuss over a simple little doll. Jebediah stretched his arms out, hands trembling as he told himself he couldn't take it. He closed his eyes, unable to bear looking at the corpse. The man tried to conjure up images more pleasant. What came to him was the image of his daughter on Christmas morning, playing with her new Tressie doll. Jebediah opened his eyes and looked at the doll. He had to go through with it, he told himself, for his little girl. Sorry, Jebediah said to the dead girl. He climbed out of the grave and set the doll down before picking up the shovel. Quickly, he filled the hole back up with dirt, grabbed the doll, and hightailed it out of the cemetery, into his car, and sped away into the night. Jebediah snuck into his house, being careful not to make too much noise. He headed to the kitchen and turned on a small light above the sink. Jeb placed the doll down, took off his coat, and picked the doll back up. With a flick of his wrist, Jebediah turned on the water and started to clean the doll. After some time, the doll was clean of all dirt, and Jebediah managed to get out some of the stench of earth. He smiled at the Tressie and placed it on the kitchen table. Now to get you wrapped up, Jebediah said triumphantly. Jebediah walked out of the kitchen and started heading to his wife's sewing room. The grandfather clock in the living room struck midnight. It was Christmas. Jebediah stopped as the clock chimed and looked at the Christmas tree. Suddenly, a microburst assaulted the Hawkins house. The windows burst open and wind and snow assaulted Jebediah. He tried to get to the windows, but is throated by how strong the wind is. Next, he attempted to retreat to the sewing room, but a gust of wind blew through the windows inside the room and slammed Jebediah to the ground. He tried to stand up, but found that he couldn't. Instead, he crawled his way back into the kitchen. Upon entering the kitchen, the wind stopped. The house felt deathly cold as Jebediah stood up, cautiously. He went to call out for his family, but found he couldn't due to a tightening pressure on his throat. Jebediah looked down at his neck and found a disembodied hand clasped around it. He grabbed hold of the hand and tore it off of him, bits of flesh and blood going with it. Jeb threw it to the ground and stomped as hard as he could on it, crushing it in a single blow. A shrill mix of a cry and laugh rang in Jebediah's ears. He spun around to find the ghostly image of the little girl from the grave hovering in his kitchen. Jebediah gasped in disbelief at what was in front of him. "What? You're dead!" he cried. "Give it back," the spirit demanded. "Give what back?" "My friend." The ghastly girl screamed loud enough to shatter windows. Jebediah stood confused until he remembered what the Undertaker had said. That girl and doll went everywhere together, like they were the best of friends. Her parents thought it would be appropriate then that she went off to heaven with a friend, so she wouldn't be lonely. The doll. It was that damned doll. Jebediah stared up at the table. How could a doll have made this happen? He asked himself. He looked at the girl. You don't understand. My daughter, she wants it, needs it. You'll have plenty of friends up in heaven. Can't you allow a little girl to know the happiness you knew with it? Jebediah pleaded. The girl answers with her other detached hand, grabbing hold of Jebediah's face, its nails digging into his flesh. He grabbed hold of the hand and once more freed himself, his face bearing gashes that would scar. Jebediah quickly got to his feet and grabbed the Tressie doll off the table and ran from the kitchen. Jebediah ran into the living room. As he tried to approach the stairs, the ghost appeared. She brought down everything she could in the living room to stop him in his path. Books, furniture, anything and everything. But Jebediah persevered. Finally, he reached the stairs and ascended them to the second floor. The house started to shake. A deafening cry of anguish and rage echoed through the house. Jebediah sprinted towards his daughter's room.
No!
An avalanche of snow fell upon the Hawkins house. Jebediah screamed as the force brought down the roof. The second floor collapsed onto the first, leaving the house completely and utterly demolished. Jebediah bolted awake, gasping for air. Despite the wintry cold, he was drenched in sweat. "Honey, what is it?" his wife asked in a panic. She rubbed the small of his back, and the sensation of feeling touch brought comfort to him. He looked at his wife and embraced her in a tight, near-violent hug. Mrs. Hawkins returned the gesture. Jebediah broke the embrace and ran out of their bedroom and into his daughter's. She wasn't there. "Downstairs!" he exclaimed. Jebediah ran downstairs with his wife not too far behind him. When they reached the living room, the couple found their daughter sitting by the Christmas tree. She turned and looked at her parents with a smile. Jebediah sighed in relief. "What kept you sleepyheads waiting? It's Christmas," the daughter said. Yes it is," Jebediah said with a huge smile. "It was all a dream," he told himself. Mr. and Mrs. Hawkins sat on their couch while their daughter began to open presents. Jebediah kissed his wife, and the two shared smiles and I love yous. From the outside looking in, the Hawkins were having a perfect Christmas. But outside, in a blackened, ethereal plain, the little girl sat and looked through the roof and into the house. She grinned. "Well, Tressie, it looks like we have some new friends. Forever and ever. Merry Christmas," she told her doll, giving it a big hug before returning her gaze to her brand new toys. Blood on the Snow by Shane Migliavacca. The cold numbed the man's feet. The snow was nearly to his knees. There was nobody to be seen. It was a blizzard on Christmas Eve. Only fools and lunatics would be on the road tonight. He could have sworn he'd seen a sign. What the hell was it called? Vera's Roadhouse. He could go for a nice juicy burger and some fries, though he really doubted they'd be open. "I don't think you saw it." The man didn't turn. He didn't want to give Simon the satisfaction. "This is a fine mess you've gotten us in," Simon moaned. "We should go back. We have a job to do." Away down the road, the man stopped. An abandoned car sat alongside the shoulder, covered by the steady snowfall. Brushing the snow off the driver's side window, the man peered inside. The interior was bathed in a faint red hue. The car was empty save for a cell phone sitting on the passenger side seat, a red, depleted battery symbol on its screen. There were words written on the inside of the windshield, in what appeared to be red lipstick. "The woods are lovely, dark and deep," Simon read. The man backed away from the car, looking around. "Strange," Simon observed. "Look at the snow." He pointed to the snow in front of the car. Through the covering of fresh snow, two sets of footprints were still visible, one from the car and one approaching it. "Looks like a struggle, maybe," Simon noted. Indeed, it looked like a scuffle of some kind happened where the two sets of footprints came together. "I think you're right," the man answered. "Finally, he speaks." The man ignored his companion. The second set came from ahead. Then one left and headed through the woods. The man was tempted to see where the footprints led, but his feet ached, and the road promised a glimmer of shelter and warmth. Angela really wanted to go home. Not that she had much to go home to in her little apartment, yet it was a hell of a lot better than waiting tables at the roadhouse. Vera was paying her extra for Christmas Eve, and Angela needed the money if she was ever going to leave Dillonsville. There was a small group tonight. 3 regulars, Stu, the cook, and Vera. "Man, look at that shit come down." "I think it's nice, Billy," Vera said. "Gonna have a white Christmas." Billy scoffed. "Fuck Christmas. You're just an old Scrooge," the old black man sitting at the bar said, before taking a shot of whiskey. "Got that right, Marvin," Billy laughed. "You won't see me wishing anybody a Merry Christmas." "I remember one Christmas," the old man mused for a moment. 20 years back, we didn't have snow until January." "That's global warming for you," Angela spoke up. "Fuck global warming," Billy grumbled. Vera scolded. "Every other word out of your mouth is either fuck, shit, or damn." "Well, hell, I guess I need my mouth washed with fucking soap." This brought a chuckle from another of the regulars. "Don't encourage him, Donnie," Vera said. Donnie, a heavy-set bald man, sat at the end of the bar. "Earlier tonight I saw the strangest-looking light coming out of the woods. Made me feel weird just seeing it," Donnie said softly. "What'd it look like?" "Strange green color, like nothing I'd seen before. Probably some kid snowmobiling got fancy new headlights or something," Billy said dismissively. The front door opened. It banged hard against the wall, startling Angela. A man in a black leather jacket stood in the entrance, brushing snow off his goatee. "Get in here," he ordered. A woman carrying a young girl entered. She flashed a meek smile. "Warm in here," the woman smiled. "Won't be for long if you keep the door open," Billy said, earning a glare from the man. "What brings you folks out on Christmas Eve?" Vera asked. The woman set the girl down. "We were visiting my mother. Ollie thought we could beat the storm home." Vera sat them at one of the booths. "What can I get you folks?" The woman looked at the girl. "What do you want, hun?" Hot chocolate?" Vera smiled. "Can do." "Got a beer?" Ollie asked. "Not tonight," the woman said. "You promised." "I'll drink what I want, Marie." Marie looked at Vera. "I'll have a hot chocolate, too." "You folks hungry? I'll have Angela bring you some menus." Sure, Ollie said. "Whatever." "Hey, Vera," Donnie spoke up. "A hot chocolate sounds good. I'll have one, too." Donnie slid off the bar stool he'd been keeping warm. Hefting up his loose-fitting pants, he walked over to the table with the newcomers. "Mama, are we going to be home in time for Santa?" the little girl asked Marie. "I'm not sure, honey." "Will Santa still bring stuff if we're not home?" "He won't come if you're a bad girl and keep making noise," Ollie warned her. Donnie tried to make small talk. "Quite a night out, huh?" "Terrible," Marie answered. Donnie smiled and waved to the girl. "What's your name, little one?" "Haley," the girl responded, looking worried. "Why don't you leave us alone, man?" Ollie's eyes narrowed to slits. "Mind your own business." "Sure, sorry." The door opened again, letting in a whirlwind of snow. The man stood there at its center. He stepped into the roadhouse, slamming the door shut in Simon's face. "Hey, wait!" Simon protested before the door closed. The man felt their eyes on him as he went over to a corner booth. From here he had a good view of the roadhouse. Angela approached him, looking a little apprehensive. "Merry Christmas," she smiled. "Can I get you something to drink or bring you a menu?" "A Coke and a cheeseburger with fries, and make it bloody." "Right." She left, and after a moment, Simon slumped into the seat opposite him, brushing snow from his shoulders and hair.
Very funny, Simon bitched. I thought so. Order anything for me? No. Figures. Donnie sidled up to the man's table. The place is jumping tonight. Have some car trouble? I don't want to do this. Donnie looked perplexed. What? Don't want what? This, the man said. Talking. Go away. A heavy-set man, his hair pulled back into a ponytail, leaned his head out of the kitchen. Vera? Angela? When do you get me some rolls from storage? The man sat, watching the others as he waited for his food. Donnie went back to his bar stool and began talking to Marvin. Angela, the waitress, brought a tray with food and drinks to the family sitting near the entrance. Another patron, Angela called him Billy, was playing a pinball machine. The man felt the tiredness creeping up on him. How long had it been since he'd slept? His eyelids grew heavy as weariness began to conquer him. His head drooped forward. His eyes snapped open again as a scream ripped through the roadhouse. Vera screamed again, tears running down her red cheeks. Out back! Dead! Stu and Angela comforted Vera as Billy questioned her. What the hell are you talking about, woman? Who's dead? A man, I don't know who, by the storeroom. Billy and Stu left to go look as Angela sat, holding Vera's hand. That's crazy, huh? A dead guy? Donnie asked Marvin, who was busy pouring himself another drink. Lots of crazy shit in the world these days, boys. The man got up. He felt a nagging itch in his head. Simon was gone, and there was a dead man. He had to see. Had to know. Donnie called after him as he walked by. Where are you going, mister? To see a dead body. The storeroom was a separate building behind the roadhouse. Billy and Stu were staring at the body when he found them. Never seen this fella before, Stu was saying. Shit, me neither. The body sat, its back against the storeroom's wall, partially covered in snow. Well, he's dead all right, the man said, startling Billy and Stu. Fuck! Don't do that, dude, Billy warned. Almost shit him. Know him, mister? Stu asked. The man shook his head. It wasn't anyone he recognized. A small blessing, anyway. No, but I did see an abandoned car down the road. Maybe it was his. Stu pondered this tidbit. Could be. Anybody check him for ID? You mean like, touch him? Billy shivered at the thought. Billy and Stu looked at the man, stepping out of the way. Billy motioned to the body. Be my guest. The man knelt in front of the body. The dead man's eyes were wide, a horrified expression etched on his face. Holy hell! Stu exclaimed. What killed him? Billy asked, his voice wavering. The man brushed more snow off the body. There were no visible marks or wounds anywhere. No clue. The man searched the body. Should you be touching him? Stu asked. He could have something. The man found a wallet. Inside was $50, a picture of a woman, and a driver's license. Adam Hunter, he said out loud. Merry Christmas. Stu stroked his stubbly chin. What do we do with him? Leave him here, the man said. He ain't going anywhere and he'll be frozen. No smell. Suppose you're right. The man slipped the wallet back into the corpse's pocket before heading back in with Billy and Stu. Inside, not much had changed. Angela sat in one of the booths with Vera. Donnie sat at the bar annoying Marvin, and the family were still seated where they were previous. Angela looked up as they entered. Is he... Billy nodded. Was he... murdered? Well, that's tough to say, really, Stu said. We should call the cops. I think Vera needs a doctor. I'm fine, Vera said, wiping her bloodshot eyes. I've never seen that kind of look on a man's face before. Billy said, sitting down at the bar. If he was killed, Vera stammered, that means somebody did it. She looked at the others. An uneasy hush fell over everybody. The man felt the others' eyes on him. What? Well, you aren't from around here, Stu said. Neither are they. The man pointed to the family. They got a kid, Billy spoke up. Besides, you seemed mighty comfortable around that body. Right, Stu nodded. The man felt sweat trickle down his brow. Maybe you're a maniac, Donnie answered. A serial killer. He looks suspicious, Vera observed. Look at him, sweating. You're all being a bunch of idiots, Marvin stated, before taking another shot of whiskey. The man shook his head. I didn't kill that man. Where was Simon? The man thought. He could really use him right about now. We should call the cops, Angela suggested. They can handle it. We don't know if he did anything. Marie stood up. We should at least lock him up, especially with my daughter here. I agree, Billy said. Look, you muskrat love-listening motherfuckers. The man looked at Marie and her daughter. Pardon my French. I didn't kill that guy. In fact, how do we know it wasn't one of you assholes? Marvin started laughing. He's got you there. Angela stood, taking out her phone. Everybody calm down. I'm going to call the cops. They can sort it all out. Stu seemed to be swayed by this. Yeah, let them deal with it. Billy grumbled. Fine. He looked at the man coldly. Vera went behind the bar. Why don't I make us all some coffee? The man sat in one of the booths, looking out the window watching the snowfall. Crap, Angela complained. All I'm getting is a recording. All the lines must be busy from the storm. Angela, want to help me with the coffee? Vera asked. Coming, Angela answered. Can I get a beer? Ollie hollered. If we're going to be stuck here, might as well enjoy it. Haley tugged at her mother's sleeve. Mama, I gotta pee. Marie looked at Ollie unsure. I'm not sure, honey. Ollie grumbled. Take her. Give me some quiet. Taking Haley by the hand, Marie asked Donnie directions to the restrooms. The man watched them go by. He sat wishing he was anywhere but here, on Christmas night. It was obvious most of the people here were ready to pin that dead man on him, but he didn't give a shit about any of them. There was a job to do. The lights flickered rapidly before going out. There were murmurs of shock, confusion, and anger from the patrons and staff. Stu spoke up, trying to calm everyone. Storm probably knocked out some power lines. Don't worry, I got a generator out back. Then, from somewhere in the roadhouse, somebody screamed. The man felt somebody rush by him in the dark. The others called out. After several minutes of darkness and uncertainty, Angela appeared holding her cell phone to light the way. They followed Angela to the women's bathroom. Vera stood with a shaken Marie and Haley. In there, Vera motioned to the middle stall. Shining the light into the stall, they crowded around. Sitting there, slumped on the toilet, was a dead woman. She wore an ugly Christmas sweater, made uglier by the blood frozen to it from her slashed throat. Written behind her, in blood, it read, "But I have promises to keep." Holy shit, Donnie gasped. Vera took Marie and Haley out of there. Who is she? Fucked if I know, Stu replied. She's been dead a while, the man pointed out. After some debate, they agreed to leave the woman sitting there. Best not to disturb any evidence. Back at the bar, they found Marie and Haley sitting together in a booth. Vera had lit a couple of kerosene lanterns, giving the interior a soft glow. Deep shadows lurked at the fringes of the light. Coffee's ready, Vera informed them. Stu exhaled. His breath was visible in the lantern light. I'm going out to start the generator, he said, pulling on a heavy jacket. Are you going out there alone? Donnie asked. Stu reached under the bar, pulling out a pump shotgun. Not alone. Vera and Angela handed out mugs of hot coffee. The man took one, watching the steam rise off it. He felt too nervous to drink. He was used to being in control, and now he was stuck in the middle of nowhere. There were 2 dead bodies, and Simon was missing. He needed Simon. The man didn't even notice the lights flickering back to life until Donnie clapped. We can warm up a little at least, Vera said, rubbing her hands together. Vera and Angela went back to the kitchen. The others hung by the bar, talking amongst themselves, save for Ollie, Marie, and their girl. The man kept to himself, not trusting any of them. Minutes went by before Vera emerged from the kitchen with Angela, both holding trays of sandwiches. Where's Stu? Vera asked, looking around. There was a murmur among them as they realized he hadn't returned. 4 of them went out. The man, Vera, Billy, and Angela. The wind began to batter them with cold and snow. Vera guided them around the back of the storeroom to a small shed. She let out a startled gasp as they neared the structure. There, laying in the snow, was what once could have been called a human being. But as of now, it was akin to a charcoal briquette. A few feet away lay Stu's shotgun. Written on the shed in charred black substance, it read, "And miles to go before I sleep." Somebody was playing a game with them, the man thought. Vera had to steady herself. Who would do this? The man looked down at the snow-covered ground. Well, besides our fresh tracks and Stu's, there are only one other set. All of them coming from the back door. We were all together, Billy observed, except for... He looked at Angela and Vera. Had to be one of you. Angela looked at Billy with a hurt expression. Why would I... You had eyes on Stu all the time, Vera accused, laughing at his jokes all the time, fawning all over him, trying to steal him away from me. You're nuts, Angela spat. Jealous old bitch. Angela slapped Vera across the face. Vera retaliated by clawing at Angela's face with her long nails. Billy stepped in, pushing them apart. While this was going on, the man made his move. The 3 were so preoccupied with their argument they'd paid no attention to him. He'd charged forward, scooping up the shotgun. Enough of this Jerry Springer bullshit. He leveled the shotgun on the 3. Get inside. Over there, the man ordered. Sit down. What the hell? Ollie blurted out as they entered. What's going on? Marvin asked. Stu's dead, Vera said. Burned alive. We don't know it was him, Angela argued. Who the hell else would it be? Vera growled. Sit, the man ordered. Vera and Angela sat, but Billy resisted. Look, dude, don't go ordering us around and waving that shotgun in our... The man drove the butt of the shotgun into Billy's stomach, dropping him to his knees. The others let out a startled gasp. Now with that foolishness out of the way, Billy, I got a little something I'd like to try. Cool with that? Billy nodded, glaring at the man. Angela, hold out your hands. Marvin shook his head. He's loco. Angela, trembling, held her hands out in front of her. Don't worry, the man reassured her. Okay, Billy, smell her hands. Motherfucking what? Billy exclaimed. Go ahead, take a whiff. Angela blushed as Billy, still on his knees, smelled her hands. What's it smell like? The man asked. Billy shook his head. I don't know. Peppermint, I guess? Okay, now do the same with Vera. Ollie spoke up. What the fuck is this supposed to prove? You getting your rocks off or something? Stu was doused with gasoline and burned. I'm willing to bet whoever did it, their hands stink of it. Billy knelt in front of Vera. Whatever, man. Before he could sniff her palms, Vera leapt on him, pulling a knife out of her jacket. She stabbed Billy in the chest. The others screamed in horror and shock. The man aimed at Vera, his finger at the trigger. Marvin and Donnie stumbled into his line of fire. The two struggled to restrain Vera. "Get out of my way!" the man shouted. Vera slashed at Marvin, forcing him to back off. Donnie managed to knock the knife from Vera's hand, but the crazed woman grabbed him by the throat. She locked eyes with the confused Donnie, and they both screamed, but he managed to shove her head into the corner of a nearby table. She crumpled to the floor, as did Donnie, breathing heavily. Everyone remained frozen in place for a moment, in shock. Angela moved first and began checking Billy, then Vera. "They're dead," she said with a heavy sigh. The man looked over at Marvin. "You okay, old man?" "I'm fine, just a little nick." He looked at the small gash on his arm. "And don't call me old man," Marvin grumbled. "What about him?" The man motioned to Donnie. Donnie started to stand, a bit shaky. "You okay, Donnie?" Angela asked. He cracked his neck. "Just dandy." That was fucked up. The little girl was sobbing as Marie tried to comfort her. Ollie stood taking in the scene. "Was that crazy bitch the killer?" He walked over to the bodies. "I need another drink." I guess," Angela answered. The man watched them, still holding the shotgun. "She had to be," Donnie added. "Gasoline smell on her hands." "We have to get the sheriff out here," Marvin said. Angela sighed. "I just want to go home and sleep." "Miles to go before you sleep," Donnie said. "What?" the man said. "What did you just say?" Nothing at all. I just want to sleep too," Donnie answered. Ollie went to the bar, taking a bottle of scotch. "I don't think they'll mind." He walked by Donnie, who grabbed the bottle from his hand. "Give me some." Donnie gulped some of the scotch down. "Hey, asshole," Ollie complained. "That was mine." Donnie hammered Ollie in the head with the bottle. Once, twice, 3 times. "Fine, have it." Ollie fell dead to the floor, his body a bloody mess. The man opened fire, the thunder of his shotgun echoing through the roadhouse. Donnie was already moving before he'd fire. The slug missed all but the big man's arm, grazing him. Donnie yanked a startled Marie from her seat, holding her by the throat in front of him. "Fire away," Donnie laughed. "Who are you?" the man asked. "A sleeper, a traveler," Donnie answered. "I've been wandering forever, but your bodies are so weak." "Let her go," the man ordered. "Why? We're playing." He tightened his grip on Marie. "It's the only thing that makes this life interesting." "Yeah, but you don't want to go running around in that fat asshole anymore, do you?" The thing inside Donnie pondered that for a moment. "What are you offering?" "Me," the man offered. "Let them go." "Sure, why not?" he laughed. "Drop the gun and come here." Angela stood next to the man. "Don't do it. Trust me," he reassured her as he dropped the shotgun to the ground. He stepped forward. The others watched as Donnie took him by the head. They locked eyes. Pain seared through every fiber of his being. For what seemed like an eternity of agony, he felt every inch of his mind assaulted. Finally it ended, and Donnie collapsed to the floor, moaning in pain. Marie grabbed her daughter and held her. The man braced himself against a table. "Your head is filled with so much static," the thing said. "Are you okay?" Angela asked. "Stay away," the man warned. "I can't hold on to myself." He felt it, laughing in his head. "I'm here for you." Simon stood in the doorway of the roadhouse. "Simon, I knew you hadn't left me." The man smiled. Angela looked at the others and then the man. Who are you talking to? The man pointed to the shotgun on the floor. If I come back, use it. I won't be me. He stepped out into the cold. It was hard to see. The wind and snow assaulted his senses. He could feel the presence inside him. You won't hold me for long, it taunted. I'll go back, kill the rest. You're just another voice in my head, the man responded. I've lived with so many in there for as long as I can remember. He trudged through the snow. His body was tired, but Simon beckoned him on. The bitter cold clawed at his body as the thing inside clawed at his soul. He'd find a place somewhere out here, far away from anybody else. Miles to go before we sleep.
Santa Claus is Killin the Town by Morgan Moore. Christmas music flows out from the stereo in the car. Janice had been listening to the music for hours on end as she and her girlfriend Molly drove along. By this point in their road trip, all of the music, courtesy of an old-time 50s and 60s radio station, had long since blended together. To Janice, it was all just crackling background noise that sounded all the same, with only good old Frosty and Rudolph to break up the monotony. How much longer? She asked Molly. Not too much. Yeah, but much? I'm feeling kind of cramped, Janice responded. Molly smirked and gave her partner a mischievous and playful look. Now listen, kiddo. If you keep that up, I'll just have to turn this car around and take my sweet time bringing you home. Janice found no words to reply, and instead offered a roll of her eyes and a middle finger. For real, though, it isn't that much more we have to go. Just to the end of this road, a few turns and a hill, and there will be home, Molly explained. If you say so, Janice said. The two were on their way to Molly's hometown of Decatur. They had been invited to spend the holidays with some of Molly's friends for a bit of an impromptu reunion. Molly thought it would be a fun, cozy getaway and could give her a great gift in a surprise visit with her parents, too. Janice wasn't super eager, though. She had never been the social type and was a wallflower even when hanging out with her own friends. The idea of spending Christmas with complete strangers in an old inn wasn't something high on her agenda. Then there was also the subject of Molly's parents. They were sweet, supportive of their daughter in every way, and had shown Janice kindness the few times they had met previously. But those were in controlled situations, out in public, not in the privacy of their own house and town. Something about the whole affair rubbed Janice the wrong way and had her feeling anxious. But it was Christmas, and it was for Molly, the love of her life. So she decided to give it a try. Maybe it could be fun to meet her old friends and spend Christmas in a little town. And who knew? Maybe Molly's parents would still be as kind and welcoming as they seemed to be. Plus, if everything went well, she could finally bring out the ring she had bought for Molly, but had yet to find the right moment to propose. True to her word, Molly turned left at the end of the country road, and a few turns, a hill, and a short stretch of road later, the two were in Decatur. Janice peered out the window as they drove along. Decatur reminded her a lot of paintings that portrayed idyllic small towns and a good old-fashioned America. Something akin to old Norman Rockwell paintings. But she liked it. The old buildings and independent businesses mixed with the snow gave her a warm and secure feeling. Looks can be deceiving, she told herself. The couple arrived at their destination, the Chamberlain Inn, a family-run establishment. They parked by the front and raced from the near bitter cold outdoors into the Chamberlain. Inside, Janice and Molly found a warm, lit entry room, a small but fanciful check-in desk against the back wall, and at the desk was a little old lady. "Why, hello there," she said raspily as the two approached. "Hello, we're here to check in," Molly stated. "Do you have a reservation?" the clerk asked. "Yep, it'll be under Molly Burke. We're also part of a group staying here for a little reunion if that helps," Molly explained. "Oh, you're part of that group too? Well, then we should get you checked in so you can join them." "My friends are already here?" Molly asked. Janice absent-mindedly paced around the room, looking at the decor, bored. "Yes, ma'am, they're in the back parlor. Here you are, Molly Burke. One room." The clerk parroted out information jotted on an index card. At the reading of one room, she glanced over at Janice. Janice caught the look and stared back. The clerk looked at Molly, who had an expression of lacking amusement, catching on to what the old lady was taken aback by. "Well, young miss, you're up on the second floor. Last door on the right." "Thanks," Molly said matter-of-fact as she took the key. Janice grabbed their bags and met Molly at the staircase. Catching the old lady watching them, Janice stopped walking. When Molly stopped in confusion, Janice kissed her. She smirked at the clerk after they broke the kiss. Molly looked at the woman's aghast expression and giggled before the two went up to their room. A little while later, the two returned downstairs, freshly showered, freshly stretched out from their 3-hour car ride, and dressed for the finest of small-town inn reunions. Janice and Molly made their way to the parlor room in the back and found a group of 4 others seated around a small table. A moment later, somebody, a girl, noticed them. She let out a shriek of excitement that gained the attention of the other 3. They also cried out in joy at the sight of Molly. The 4 got out of their seats and nearly bum-rushed her in their excitement. What followed was a series of hugs, tears of happiness, how are yous, and common expressions of friendship. Janice smiled a little at the beginning of the onslaught, but couldn't help her social anxiety from rising a few levels. So she backed away from the mob and found a spot against a bookshelf. Molly caught the change out of the corner of her eye and also saw the look of unease with a tinge of being upset at not being included. She smiled and broke away from her friends and lightly strode over to her girlfriend. Where are my manners? I'm such a rude bitch sometimes. Everybody, this is Janice, my girlfriend. To punctuate her introduction and soft apology to Janice, Molly kissed her lovingly. Janice blushed, but smiled. "Hi," she squeaked out. "Hello to you too. My name is Elijah," a tall man told her. "I'm Kate. Nice to meet you, Janice," an average height but clearly surgically enhanced woman said. "We're Marcus and Amanda," the two said, a couple that looked as plain Jane and homey as Decatur itself. "Well, that's everyone, dear. Come on, let's eat some food and get a little drinking in while we embarrass each other with old stories," Molly proclaimed. The group agreed and returned to the table. Molly gave Janice an apologizing look for not immediately introducing her. Janice smiled and shrugged her shoulders. She gave her a peck on the cheek. The two then walked hand in hand to the table and joined the others. Minutes turned to hours as the 6 conversed about their pasts and their presents. To her surprise, Janice found herself being brought into the conversation, and her anxiety level was decreasing at a rapid rate. It didn't appear to be forced either. They seemed to enjoy her company and her theirs. Despite her initial hesitation on the whole affair, Janice had to admit that she was, in fact, having a good time. The full wintry moon shone through the parlor window. A fire was roasting in the fireplace, helmed by Marcus and Elijah. The ladies were seated in various chairs with Janice and Molly sharing a love seat.
A tall, old grandfather clock ticked away the time. "So, what do you think of our little town, Janice?" Amanda asked before taking a sip from a mug of tea. Janice took a sip from her own mug filled with a combo of hot chocolate and alcoholic creamer. "It's actually pretty nice. I thought it would be some little boring Midwest town that time forgot, but it isn't all that bad." "Except it is a boring little Midwest town," Elijah interjected with a chuckle. "She's so modest and such a liar. Janice loves old-time stuff like this. She practically lives at the Antiques Village back at home," Molly chimed in. "Is that so?" Kate questioned in a humored manner. "Yup," Molly said. She looks over at a now blushing Janice and pecks her on the cheek with a playful smile. "Anything old or anything that looks like it was plucked out of Mayberry is this girl's jam." "Then why is she dating you?" Marcus shot in with a well-timed delivery. The line garnered laughs from everybody in the parlor. "Yeah, what can I say? I like old stuff. It's better quality. The music, the movies, the look and feel of everything. It's just so grand," she said, punctuating the last word in a style similar to old movie actresses. "What about stories?" Elijah asked. "Huh?" Janice tilted her head in confusion. "Do you like old stories?" he asked again. "Yeah." "Then you'll love Decatur even more. The town is filled with old stories of love, fun, adventure, and even some gnarly shit," Elijah continued. "Gnarly shit? Like what? Crimes?" Janice questioned, her posture now one of intrigue and full investment in the conversation. "Here we go," Kate said sarcastically. "Yeah, I mean, we got bank robberies, a couple of politically inclined crimes, a murder here and there. Then, of course, there's old Robbie Clint," Elijah said. The room went deathly quiet. All merriment and holiday cheer that had filled and bled into the walls was quickly sucked out, leaving only a bitter, cold sense of reality and dread. Janice looked around and noticed that her companions all had an expression of fear and anger. "Elijah!" Amanda nearly shouted. "You know better," Marcus scolded. "I'm only trying to entertain our new friend," he told them. "Yeah, but come on. You know we don't speak his name," Molly chimed in gloomily. "I'm confused. Why is it such a bad thing that Rob—" Before Janice can finish saying the name, Molly put a hand over her mouth and shushed her. The four lifelong friends looked at each other. To Janice, it looked as if they were having a telekinetic conversation with one another. Eventually, Marcus sighed. "Well, since you started it, you may as well finish it. Tell her," he instructed Elijah. "Just don't say his name," Kate added. "Or at the very least, don't say all of it," Molly continued. All right. Well then, Janice. Ready to hear Decatur's infamous rise to fame?" Elijah questioned the girl as if he was an investigator. Janice glanced at all the faces in the room. When her eyes settled on Molly, they found a look of terror and sadness. Glancing down, she noticed that Molly had grabbed hold of one of Janice's hands and was squeezing it. She couldn't tell if it was for support for her or out of fear of whatever this terrifying tale was. "Yeah," Janice said dryly. "Give it to me." Elijah stoked the fire once more before standing up. He made his way to the window and looked up at the freezing moon. With a sigh and a gulp, he began the tale. Our story begins when we were all little kids still crapping in our diapers. It was actually close to Christmas. Kind of eerie that I'm telling it now of all times of the year. Then again, how many of us actually think about Christmas outside of this time of year? Anyway, I'm rambling.
Robbie was a local high school dropout. He was about 18 or 19, depends on who you ask. Being a dropout meant the only work he could find was in fast food joints, or as a janitor, or some other menial work. He lucked out a little bit in that he found a job at a local radio station, where he mostly cleaned but was taught how the whole place worked. Nothing to make a huge living off of, but Robbie seemed to enjoy it. Well, that was how he made money at night. During the day, if he wasn't at home living a lonesome life, Robbie worked as a babysitter. Thing is, Robbie wasn't always the most patient person, and he had a reputation for letting loose some of that impatience from time to time. Now, I don't know about you all, but kids can be infuriating little brats. So to some, it wasn't a surprise that Robbie quickly found himself out of babysitting when an allegation of him hurting a kid came out. He claimed the mom had the hots for him, and when he turned her down, she decided to be spiteful. She said Robbie beat the kid to near death because her son was having a tantrum. Nobody really knows what happened, or at least remembers now. But the end result was a lot of people pissed and refusing to hire him to watch their kids. The backlash was so bad that Robbie even lost his job at the radio station. Young, alone, filled with pent-up anger at everything bad in his life, out of work, and ostracized from pretty much the whole town, Robbie decided he would get some revenge. Some sweet, sinister revenge. On Christmas Eve night, he broke into the radio station and executed what little staff was on hand. Then he set up for a broadcast, just as he was taught. Robbie interrupted a marathon of Christmas tunes and told the kids who were listening that he was good old Santa Claus.
Ho, ho, ho.
Santa Robbie said that Decatur was one of his favorite towns in the world, and because of that, he wanted all of the good boys and girls to meet him that night at the Christmas tree set up in the center of downtown during Christmas Eve Mass. The parents figured, why the hell not? Their kids always complained about going to church anyways. When it came time for Mass, parents that decided to do it dropped their kids off at the tree with Santa Claus. In reality, a disguised Robbie, before they went off to church. When service was over and the parents returned to collect their kids, they found something straight out of a horror movie. Their precious little babies had been killed. Immediately, they stormed to the radio station, finding the dead crew and the security footage of Robbie doing the dirty, bloody deed, thus telling them who in fact was behind the massacre of their children. It took nearly all night, but they eventually found him in a bathroom in the church they had gone to for Mass. Robbie had smashed a mirror and slit his own wrists and throat. The parents disposed of his body by cremating it at the local funeral parlor. Christmas that year was truly red and green. Red from the blood and green from how sick the whole affair was. Elijah finished the story and quickly made his way to a small bar in the parlor, taking a long drink from a whiskey bottle. Everybody else sat in silence. Janice spoke up. So, why aren't you supposed to say his name then? Your story didn't mention that. Some say that because he killed himself in a church, that his soul was cursed and damned for eternity, and that if you even say his name once, he'll return. to butcher more people. Or it's out of respect for the victims. Duh. Nobody in this town likes to hear about him, Marcus replied. So what? You just pretend he never existed? Do you, censor out a letter in his name if you write about him, like how some people do on Twitter? 'Cause if so, that's pretty stupid. I mean, it's like saying the F word or the N word. You're just making the other people say it in their mind, so you don't have to be accountable for your words, Janice explained. No, we're not that crazy, Kate responded. You just gasp in horror if somebody said his name? Janice retorted. Amanda rolled her eyes and shook her head disapprovingly at Molly. Some folks just don't understand town customs. Janice released a sigh of exhaustion and irritation at the conversation. Guys, I'm pretty sure if you say his name, he won't appear like Bloody Mary. Besides, if it was out of respect as you claim, then why did you all seem so scared out of your skin when Elijah first said his name? Silence filled the room again. Nobody wanted to talk about the subject of the story. Janice looked over at Molly and found only a look of confusion at the reunion's turn. Tired of it, Janice stood up and walked to the door leading out of the parlor. She turned to face her companions. Robbie Clint, Robbie Clint, Robbie Clint, Robbie Clint, Robbie Clint, she said in quick succession before leaving the parlor. Janice found herself unable to sleep. Her mind was filled with nightmares of children being killed by a psychotic Santa and of her love being taken away by some unknown creature of fear. She sighed and got out of bed, threw on a robe, and left her and Molly's room. Quietly, she walked through the inn, not wanting to wake anybody up or be confronted for what happened earlier in the night. By process of elimination, Janice walked all of the upstairs and all of the downstairs, finding her journey ended in the parlor. She made herself a drink and relaxed on the love seat. What was supposed to be a pleasant Christmas getaway, and started off well, had turned into a tense one. Janice told herself that perhaps it would be better in the morning between the six of them, and that Molly's parents could still be a good time. Yet a little voice in her head argued otherwise. Janice grunted in frustration as she placed the glass on the bar. She looked around the parlor and found herself staring at a closet on the other side of the room. During the earlier festivities, she had seen it, but hadn't given it much thought. It was just a closet after all, but her inability to sleep sparked a curiosity for what was inside. Quietly, Janice walked to the closet and opened it. Inside was an old radio that stood up to her midriff. Intrigued by the radio, Janice started fiddling with the various knobs on it. A smile formed on her face as her anxiety melted away while playing with the antique. Looking it over closer, she noticed that it wasn't plugged in. She had to know if it would work. Slowly, Janice pulled the radio out of the closet and pushed it over to the closest outlet she could find. With excitement trembling through her body, she plugged in the radio and turned the knobs. Silence gave way to a soft, fuzzy crackling. "It works!" she exclaimed in a whisper. Filled with giddiness, Janice played with the tuner knob to find a channel while making sure the volume wasn't too loud. The static that initially greeted her did so with every twist she made of the knob. Janice kept playing with it, determined to find a station that was broadcasting.
Ho, ho, ho!
Boomed out from the radio's speaker. In surprise, Janice turned the volume down more. "I found one."
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas! It's your old friend, Santa Claus. I want to wish all of you good boys and girls a wonderful Christmas, and to show kindness to their fellow man, even those who are naughty. That includes those who aren't actually naughty, but are said and made to be. Even those little ones get gifts too.
Janice listened in complete confusion as to what it was that she was even listening to.
And speaking of gifts, I brought gifts for everyone, including you, Janice.
Her mouth dropped some. What?
Yes, you too, Janice. You get a gift. You've been the nicest one of all by giving me a gift.
I did?
Why, of course. You gave me the gift of acknowledgement and resurrection.
Janice blinked in total bewildered confusion. Then it clicked in her head. Robbie Clint? She exclaimed.
Yes, sirree. Thank you from the bottom of my formerly non-beating heart. Are you ready for your gift?
I guess?
Well then, close your eyes, and I'll give it to you.
Janice did what she was told. The radio ceased to make any noises afterwards. She sat in silence, wondering what the hell was even going on, and that this was the last time she would ever drink this late at night. Open your eyes. She did, and found the radio. No longer there. In its place was a man in a Santa costume, blood dripping from his wrists and throat. There was a gleeful smile on his face and a hatchet in his hand. Around him were the bodies of Amanda and Kate and Marcus and Elijah and the innkeeper and of Molly. Janice gasped in horror and looked at the man. Robbie Clint? Janice squeaked out. Merry Christmas, Robbie Clint proclaimed, before swinging his axe down. Krampus Is Comin by Rob Fields. Kathy Betcher was the president of the Alpha Delta Kappa sorority at Strickfield University. It had taken her a lot of manipulation and cunning for her to finally achieve her coveted position, and she had no intention of relinquishing it until she was ready to graduate. She knew each and every one of her sorority sisters was a potential usurper. This even included her two best friends, Margaret Nash and Angie Adams, when she had seen how incredibly friendly they and her estranged father were towards each other. Simply put, Kathy didn't trust anyone. What people didn't know about Kathy was that she used to be a kind and loving soul, until too many bad things had happened during her time at the university. First, Kathy learned that her boyfriend, Trey Colm, was cheating on her, leading to a big breakup. Next, her former best friend from high school, Whitney Plaza, both betrayed and undermined her to become ADK president. The last straw came when Kathy discovered her own father, the president of Strickfield University at the time, had been helping Whitney against her. When Kathy finally determined that it was a cutthroat world, she resorted to the same tactics used against her to gain revenge. First, she got Trey expelled from Strickfield U by switching out his senior thesis with a plagiarized one. In fact, Dean Jerry Roth expelled Trey personally. Next, she found financial evidence on her father that the IRS was most appreciative to receive. She also secretly mailed hardcore evidence to her mother of her father's infidelity with many female students, including his current affair with Whitney Plaza, leading to a very nasty divorce. But Kathy didn't stop there. Upon discovering Whitney and her father were seeing each other and connecting the affair to Whitney's presidency, she brought the evidence of that affair, as well as the others, to the Wright University officials. Whitney was quickly removed from the ADK sorority and expelled from the university, which basically meant her life was ruined. Shortly after, Kathy was named the new president of the Strickfield branch of Alpha Delta Kappa. As for Griffin Betcher, Kathy's father, he was also removed from Strickfield University. He had the last laugh, however, and was elected to Congress shortly thereafter. This made Kathy madder than ever, and she started using her own power to make life hell for other people. She used her influence to make connections both at Strickfield University and with other area politicians. In fact, she used her connections to have Strickfield branches of rival sororities shut down permanently. Though Kathy felt she had ultimate power, she was still upset she couldn't punish her father. Even her influence wasn't strong enough to reach him at his level of power. Her anger and resentment of her father caused her to sever ties with the rest of the family. In fact, Kathy deleted every voicemail and text she'd ever received from her mother. She avoided returning home even for the holidays. As far as she was concerned, home was the sorority house. Once she graduated, she would act on other promising prospects and move on to greener pastures. She would leave Strickfield and never look back. "Hey, Kat, you okay?" Margaret asked her. "Yeah, you look like something's really bothering you," Angie added. "Yeah, like you bitches care," Kathy thought. "I'm fine. Just got a lot on my mind. I'm gonna go get some fresh air." Kathy left the house. After stopping at the local coffee shop, The Bitter End, she left the university and walked to the downtown area. As she drank her mocha, she looked at her smartphone. Christmas Eve already? Fuck. Kathy knew it would again be herself and her two sorority sisters for Christmas. She saw that her mother again sent texts and left voicemails. As usual, she deleted everything. "Kathleen Betcher!" a voice suddenly called out. "Fuck," she muttered and walked faster. "Kathleen Betcher, you stop right there, right now!" Kathy finally stopped and waited for her mother. She had been ghosting her mom and her younger sister since revealing her father's infidelity to her mother. "Seriously, are you stalking me now?" Kathy demanded rudely. "What do you want?" "Is this how it's going to be?" Lorraine Betcher demanded back. "Do you blame me for why your father and I are divorced? I wasn't the one sleeping around." "Look, Mom, I really don't care anymore, okay?" Kathy snapped. "I just want to be left alone. Is that too much to goddamn ask for?" Lorraine looked stern. "By shutting me and Ruth out of your life? We're your family, Kathleen, and it's not fair." Kathy groaned. "Yeah? Well, the world ain't fucking fair, is it?" Lorraine pointed right at her. "You do not use that tone or language with me, young lady. I am your mother, and I gave both you and Ruth the best years of my life." Kathy lashed out. "Mom, just leave me the fuck alone. Why is that so hard for you to understand?" Lorraine wouldn't relent. "Why is it so hard for you to understand? You still have family." "Ruth and I both miss you, Kathleen. We're not your enemies. We're not expecting you to come back home full time, but you could come by every now and then. And Ruth and I would like you to come home for Christmas tomorrow. Ruth really misses you. You know she's always looked up to you. You were her best friend in the whole world, and you just turned your back on her. Come home and make things right with her." Kathy was about to say no and walk away, but she remembered Ruth. Her baby sister came along many years after her.
Kathy was 23 while Ruth was 11. Pre-college, Kathy remembered how Ruth idolized her and wanted to be just like her when she got to be old enough. Fine, Kathy conceded. I'll come home tomorrow, but I'm doing it for Ruth, not for you. That's fine, Lorraine replied. Just, please come home and see your sister tomorrow. In fact, why don't you bring a gift for her to tell her how much you care? She still enjoys collecting those snow globes. Kathy sighed. Fine. Then she started to walk away. 2:00 tomorrow, Lorraine called out behind her. Yeah, Kathy muttered. Kathy walked through the main entrance of Strickfield Town Center Mall. As she walked around, she noticed there weren't many people. She checked her smartphone and saw it was getting close to 6. Damn it, the mall's gonna close for Christmas. I've got to find a snow globe for Ruth. As she hurried through the mall, she didn't see any stores that sold snow globes. Then she saw some stores were closing and walked faster. By the time she reached the other end of the mall, the JCPenney had already locked up. Kathy groaned. Shit, I just had to run into my fucking mom. Where am I going to get a snow globe now? She turned to walk away when she saw a light near the mall entrance. She knew not too many people had used. She walked in the direction until she saw a store called Tinker's. Kathy entered the store and saw many odds and ends on the shelves. May I help you, young lady? Kathy quickly turned and saw a man in his late 40s approaching her. She was about to apologize for coming in, but remembered she was Kathy Betcher. She never apologized to anyone. I'm looking for a snow globe. I don't suppose you've got one. The man raised his finger. I just so happen to have one right in my display case at the register. Follow me. Kathy followed the man to the front counter. She could already see the snow globe in the display case. The man stepped behind the counter, opened the case, and took the snow globe out for her to see. When Kathy took hold of it, it felt a little heavy. This is the biggest snow globe I've ever seen. I don't think Ruth has any this big. As she looked it over more, she saw the figure sitting on its throne. The figure had big and curly horns, brown to graying fur, bright red eyes, and cloven hooves for feet. Is this Krampus? Kathy asked the man. Ah, you know of Krampus, do you? The man replied. Depending on who you ask, he's supposed to be the evil version of Santa Claus or even like Santa's brother. I've heard he comes and takes the bad children while Santa gives presents to the good ones. I've also heard Krampus takes the souls of the wicked and corrupt. She sighed. People spread stories about Krampus all over campus, much like any other story about ghosts and goblins. I swear, people think every day is Halloween here. There was a brief silence. Then the man said, This is the only snow globe I have, and I'll let you have it for $20. Kathy pulled her billfold out of her purse to complete the transaction. After the man escorted her out, Kathy tried to leave through the mall entrance next to Tinker's, but the doors were locked. She cursed and walked back through the mall to the main entrance. Ruth better be happy about this, Kathy muttered. Kathy decided she wasn't staying at the sorority house with Margaret and Annie, and secretly left to be alone. While she was sure she could have stayed in her old room at home, she rented a room at a boarding house. As she unpacked her suitcase, she pulled out the snow globe and examined it again. Was it her, or were the Krampus figure's eyes glowing? You're letting those goddamn ghost stories people tell at the university get to you again, she thought. She put the snow globe down, but still felt compelled to look into the glowing eyes. After a time, she shook her head and turned away. Just then, someone knocked at her door. Figuring it was Mrs. Elkins, the lady who owned the boarding house, she went and answered. Her jaw dropped when she saw. Trey Colm? Oh, fuck no. Angry, she tried to slam the door in his face, but he easily forced his way in and closed the door behind him. Get the fuck out, Trey, she yelled. Then she realized. And how did you even know I was here? Trey sneered. Saw you check in. Finally get kicked out of your sorority, huh? She groaned and pointed to the door. Fuck off, you bastard. Out. He kept sneering. I know you miss me, Kat. You know how good I made you feel. Yeah, before you started fucking around on me, she retorted. So what? You think you can just come back to me and fuck me again? Kathy gasped as he yanked her into his arms. You know you wanna. I see it on you. Hell, I'm willing to forget you getting me kicked out of school. Then Trey kissed her full on the mouth. Kathy immediately kissed him back. They quickly undressed and got into bed. Kathy let Trey get on top of her and moaned when he entered her. She was so angry at everything that she needed this sex right now, even if it was with Trey. Kathy stepped out of the shower and started towel drying herself. She felt disgusted for letting Trey back in, knowing he'd be screwing other girls later. She moved back to the bed and found him, sleeping soundly. At least he wouldn't be with other girls tonight. As Kathy dropped her towel to get back into bed, the glowing eyes of Krampus in the snow globe caught her attention. Kathy seemed mesmerized as she walked to the snow globe. When she picked it up, it felt warm in her hands.
Punish him,
she heard the demonic voice in her mind.
Punish those who have done you wrong. Claim their lives and their souls. Accept me into your life, Kathleen Betcher. Use my power.
Kate never even gave it a thought. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Suddenly, Kathy felt an incredible surge of power throughout her body. Her anger fueled the new power that she was accepting. She relished the spirit of Krampus entering her body and becoming one with her. When it was finished, Kathy moaned as if she had just had an incredible orgasm. Then she turned back to the sleeping Trey and walked sexily toward him. She climbed onto the bed and easily awakened him. Trey grinned his sneering grin again. Oh, hey, back for more? Kathy smiled, a wicked smile. Kathy straddled him and took him into her again. She rode him with an incredible hunger. Trey laid there and enjoyed every minute of it. They climaxed together after several minutes. Then Kathy put her hands on his chest as he fondled her breasts. You're definitely the best, babe, Trey said softly. Then why did you fuck those other girls behind my back? She purred. Huh? Trey uttered. Suddenly, Kathy throttled his neck.
You heard me,
she said in her new demonic voice.
I was never good enough for you, so you fucked around on me.
Kathy smiled.
Well, now, I'm going to make you mine. Forever.
When Trey saw her transforming, he screamed. Kathy's hair and flesh turned white as snow. Her eyes glowed red and hot. She grew long in curly horns, silvery fur on her arms and legs, and her feet became cloven hooves. Kathy raised a hand to reveal bony and elongated fingers with long, sharp claws. Trey's blood-curdling scream made Kathy laugh as she easily sank her new claws into his stomach. She removed his bloody heart and relished the warm liquid trailing down her arm and into her fur.
I always thought you were a heartless bastard for cheating on me. I guess I was wrong.
Kathy laughed cruelly as she got off him and moved to the snow globe to claim it. When she gazed into it, Her eyes and the glass on the globe both glowed. When the glowing stopped, she tossed the heart back to Trey's bloody corpse.
Keep your heart, lover. I have your soul. You truly belong to me now.
Kathy knew that Trey was just the beginning. There were others that were high on her naughty list. She turned and crashed through the window to get outside. When she landed on the ground, she broke off a tree branch and attached it to the bottom of the snow globe to make a staff. She raised her new conduit to the sky. When the snow globe glowed, it quickly became windy. Then the snowstorm began. In a matter of short minutes, the green grass had become white. She looked to the sky and saw her sleigh was coming with her own monstrous versions of reindeer. When the sleigh got close enough, she leaped onto it. Once she sat and took the reins, Krampus was on her way to her next naughty. Whitney Plaza had clearly been enjoying the good life, in spite of being disgraced from her former sorority and Strickfield University. Unbeknownst to Kathy, Whitney was still in a heated affair with Kathy's father. In fact, the two lovers had just finished another round in a jacuzzi at a secluded house just outside of town. Whitney lifted herself off him and sat beside. They picked up their champagne glasses and took sips, stealing kisses from each other. "I love you, Griffin," Whitney whispered when he held her in his arms. "I love you too, baby," he whispered to his young lover's lips. She gazed into his eyes. "You're still taking good care of me after what your daughter did. She literally ruined my life." "I know," Griffin replied. "She attacked you to get to me. But I was the one who ended up suffering most for it," she groaned. "You just had to pay money. I can't even get a job working at Denoyer's Grill or Roth's Rings." He kissed her again. "I said I'd take good care of you, and I will. Remember, I'm marrying you right after the New Year." "Oh, Griffin," Whitney moaned and let him kiss her again.
My, isn't this touching? And by two people I once trusted with my life.
The two betrayers came apart and saw the demonic form that was standing there before them. In her hand was her newly created staff. Whitney's jaw dropped. "Kathy?" When Griffin saw Whitney was right, he gasped. "Kathy, is that you?" The demon laughed.
Kathy is no more. There is only Krampus now. And tonight, the two of you will pay for your sins.
She put her staff against the wall before she leaned forward and put her clawed hands on the side of the hot tub.
Now, which one of your black souls do I take first?
Krampus looked from Griffin to Whitney before she finally settled on Whitney.
You were supposed to be my best friend. We were tight in high school, and the moment Daddy offered you power, you stabbed me in the back without a second thought.
Whitney screamed and quickly got out of the hot tub on the other side, facing Krampus. You don't understand. I had a unique opportunity. Being the president of the Kappa sorority opens up lots of doors. I had to take it when your dad offered it. He said you couldn't handle it, that you were too weak. Krampus looked at Griffin.
Oh, did you now?
Griffin cried out in fright and himself tried to escape. Krampus seized him and pulled him close.
There's nowhere you can run where I can't find you, Daddy.
Krampus just tossed him right over her shoulder, like a piece of trash. Griffin cried out as he flew into the liquor cabinet and tumbled to the floor. Krampus looked over her shoulder.
You really should run. You don't want to see what happens to your sweetie.
Krampus laughed as Griffin picked himself up and staggered away. Then she turned her attention back to Whitney. You got your revenge on me by disgracing me, Whitney yelled. Isn't that enough? Krampus sneered.
Not when you're still living in luxury with your sugar daddy. With my daddy.
Krampus leaped over the hot tub and grabbed Whitney by her hair as she tried to flee. Whitney screamed and started crying as she was turned to face Krampus again. Please, Kathy, what do you want? I'm so sorry. Krampus caressed her cheek. Then Whitney screamed again when Krampus lifted her up by her breasts and slammed her back into the hot tub. Krampus held Whitney underneath the water as she reached for and grabbed her staff. She dipped the snow globe into the water and made it boil. Holding the staff with both hands, she started stirring the heavy steaming water, which was slowly turning a sickening red. When Krampus had finished making her hellish Christmas punch, she pulled the staff out of the water with Whitney's soul now inside. Krampus held her staff upright once again. She took one of the champagne glasses and filled it with the newly made punch. Then she took a sip.
Sinfully perfect.
She looked in the direction Griffin ran.
I'll return for Daddy after I make another quick stop.
Krampus left the house and got back into her sleigh. Soon Krampus was flying into the haunting, wintry sky again. Margaret Nash and Angie Adams were cuddled up with each other on the couch as they watched It's a Wonderful Life together. They were the only two girls left in the ADK sorority house. The other sisters had gone home to be with their families for the holidays. Can you believe this weather? Angie muttered as she tightened her comforter around herself more. The furnace ain't even keeping the house warm. Come here, Margaret murmured and held Angie. We'll keep each other warm. The girls rested against each other as they continued watching the movie. I wish Kat was here with us, Margaret said. I can't believe she just up and left and didn't say anything. I know. What's gotten into her? Angie agreed. Suddenly, the front doors burst open. The girls screamed as a huge blast of snow and wind blew into the living room and practically chilled them to their bones. They screamed again when they saw the demonic figure standing in the doorway. Krampus walked in and saw the girls running upstairs. She growled and raced up after them. With her powerful legs, she was on them before they could hide in one of the bedrooms. She grabbed them and brought them into a bedroom herself.
You two were very naughty this year,
Krampus told them.
You bitches only pretend to be my friends.
She then threw them both onto the bed. Annie immediately recognized the face. Kat? Oh, Jesus, Kat! What happened to you? Margaret saw that Annie was right and screamed. Krampus moved right to them and lifted them off the bed.
You two were plotting with Daddy to overthrow me. You think I don't see through you two backstabbers?
Margaret's jaw dropped. What are you talking about? We've always stuck by you, Kat. You're wrong. You're our friend, Annie told her. We would never do anything to hurt you. Krampus shook them.
I saw you two talking to my dad,
she roared.
You both flirted with him, and it wasn't just once.
We were just talking to him, Margaret stammered. He's a senator. How could we tell him to fuck off? We can't even stand him, Annie added. He's such a pig. Please, Kat, listen to us. You're our friend. And we love you.
Lies. You two will say anything to avoid judgment.
She pushed them away and pointed right at them.
Your souls are mine.
The girls started crying now. You're wrong, Annie shrieked. You're wrong. We never plotted against you. We would never do that, Margaret agreed. I admit we didn't always agree with everything you did, but we always stood by you. Remember last Christmas when you wanted us to watch It's a Wonderful Life with you? Margaret recalled. We ended up staying up all night watching Christmas movies together. That was so much fun. We spent so much time together, Kat, Annie said. It wasn't just because we're in this godforsaken sorority together. We both love you. We... Then she started crying more. What happened to you, Kat? Margaret held Annie as she cried. Then Margaret began to cry again. She looked to Krampus. Whatever we did to piss you off, we're sorry. Krampus felt these girls were telling the truth. She snorted and slowly backed away from them. She really wanted to claim their souls, but they had been telling the truth. They had never once conspired against her. Now she was the one who had hurt them. Kathy was ready to relinquish the power. But then the face of her father came back into her mind. Griffin Betcher was a very naughty person. It was time for Krampus to settle the score with him, once and for all. Krampus burst right through the front door of Kathy's childhood home and found them all in the living room. Lorraine, Ruth, and... Krampus pointed right at Griffin.
You. I'm here to claim your soul, Daddy.
She leaped at Griffin and picked him up.
Still think I'm weak? Look at how you cower like a naughty little child at knowing it's too late to repent when I come for them.
Yes, Griffin replied quickly. Yes, you're right, Kathy. I am weak. I am a piece of shit. I've given in to the sins of flesh too many times. I put it even above my own family. My own wife.
And then there's all the money you've spent on luxuries for your whores,
Krampus added.
Do you have any idea how hard it was for your wife to have to raise 2 children without the help of a deadbeat daddy who cared more about his cock than his own children?
Krampus lifted him up and threw him across the living room next to the fireplace. She was back on him almost immediately. She lifted him by his pressed shirt collar and brought his head close to the fire. Kathleen, no! Lorraine beckoned.
You can't save him. People like Griffin are beyond saving. He had many opportunities to do the right thing.
She redirected her attention back to Griffin.
Remember how you betrayed me to take Whitney Plaza as your mistress? And it wasn't just once. You betrayed me many times. You chose her over your own daughter.
She roared with enough anger to shake the entire house.
But now you're going to find out what hurts much worse. Betrayal or fire?
Kathy, no! Griffin shrieked. No, please!
Too late,
Krampus growled. She shoved his head into the fireplace and held him there as his head caught fire and started burning quickly. Griffin screamed as his pain seemed to last for eternity. Lorraine tried to pull Krampus off him, but it was much too late. His soul now belonged to Krampus and was now stored in the snow globe with the others she had claimed. Krampus turned her attention to Lorraine and Ruth. She seemed surprised when Ruth was right there in front of her. Please, Kathy, no more, she begged her older sister. Please, come back. Krampus was about to push Ruth away. But then, Ruth hugged her. Kathy, I love you. She looked up into Krampus's face. Please come home. I miss my big sister. Lorraine looked at Krampus. Ruth's right. You and Ruth are both my baby girls, and I gave you both the best years of my life to raise you right. I did it because I love you both so much. Maybe your father only cared about himself, but you always had your sister. You always had me. You'll always have the two of us. You'll always have a home here with us. We'll never stop loving you.
No, it's too late,
Krampus stammered.
I've already taken lives and souls. There can be no redemption for me now.
You have the souls, Lorraine agreed. But you can give them back. You can still do the right thing, Kathleen. Don't let your soul be damned like this. Is this really what you want? Krampus began to cry now. Then she growled and tried to shatter the snow globe. Instead of breaking, the globe came off the staff and right into Ruth's hands. Suddenly, the snow globe glowed bright white as Ruth willed the souls Krampus had taken to be returned to their owners. Krampus roared as he found himself being pulled out of Kathy and back into the snow globe to return to his lair. Once his spirit was gone, there was a bright flash of light, and everything had changed. Christmas morning came. Kathy was standing at the front door of her family's house with Margaret and Annie. Kathy knew her two friends would be in the sorority house alone, so she invited them to come home with her for Christmas. Lorraine didn't mind in the least. Kathy even brought presents for her mother and sister. When Ruth opened her gift from Kathy, it was a big snow globe that had Santa Claus sitting on his throne at the North Pole. She shook it to make the artificial snow move around in the water. In fact, only Ruth knew the events that had happened with the Krampus snow globe. Upon returning the souls to their owners and restoring them to life, she willed that the previous day's events be forgotten. Kathy would never come to be in possession of the Krampus snow globe from Tinkers. In the new reality, Kathy ended up reconsidering her stance against ignoring her family and decided to return home for the holidays. After the spring semester started at Strickfield University, she resigned as president of the ADK sorority and left the house. To her surprise, Margaret and Annie wouldn't let her go alone and joined her. Kathy no longer needed a sorority, not when she had two best friends, her mother and Ruth. In fact, Kathy moved back home with her family. Margaret and Annie moved in with the Betchers as boarders to help with the expenses. Kathy could now spend some quality time with both her two friends and her mother and sister. About a week after Kathy had settled in back home, Isley Tinker stood outside the Betcher house with the Krampus snow globe in his hand. Seeing little Ruth playing with Kathy, he both admired and detested the little girl at the same time. Children, unfortunately, still prove to be innocent, even in this day and age, he said out loud. That's what saved your soul on Christmas Eve night, Kathleen Betcher. You may have your family and your friends. He looked into the globe and saw the figure's eyes glow bright red. Krampus will simply seize another vessel to carry out his judgment against the wicked, or perhaps return for you next Christmas Eve. From there, he turned and walked away, leaving the Betcher house and its occupants in peace, at least for now. Operation Deadly Night by Keith Tomlin. The New York Spectator, Tuesday, September 20th, 2047. Headline: Rollins Robotics ready to roll out Robo-Santas by Robert Jackson. The Rollins Robotics Company, RRC, announced today that they will be offering a Santa Claus modification, or mod, for their popular line of RMS X7 android butlers. The kit will include new behaviors and routines, as well as a Santa jacket, hat, and beard. The company said that the kits should start shipping as early as November 1st. Eric Vasquez, a professor of economics at MIT, expects the trend of introducing add-ons to personal Android servants, or PASs, to increase in the future. Quote, With almost a quarter of Americans owning a PAS, nearly everyone that can afford one already has one, Professor Vasquez said. Offering the ability to modify your Android butler is the next logical step and could be a real boost to RRC's bottom line. If they want to hang on to their nearly 60% market share, they need to justify their higher price point to consumers and stave off lower-priced competition, such as Modern Robotics, Inc. December 24th, 7:56 a.m., Port Presley, Maryland. The delivery drone descended from the sky and hovered in front of a white, narrow 3-story townhouse as it verified the address. Verification complete. It gently deposited a package on the mat in front of the door and sent a signal that tripped the doorbell circuit. Duty complete. It shot up in the air, continuing its endless journey to supply goods to the masses. The Rollins Robotics Model RMS X715 personal android servant, known to its owners as Charles, noted the buzz of the doorbell and turned off the iron before placing it on the ironing board. He turned towards the door and his tread softly hummed as he rolled across the carpet. Charles had a humanoid torso, arms and head covered in metallic gold skin, sitting on top of a metal pole ending in a base with a series of independently functioning treads. These treads help him maneuver over difficult terrain, including stairs. Wearing a butler's jacket, he had the poise and dignity of an Old English butler. Charles opened the door and retrieved the package. He quickly scanned the label and entered the kitchen. "Mr. Molson, a package has arrived for you," he stated in his flat metallic voice. George Molson looked up from his newspaper and held out his hand. His level of excitement shot up when he looked at the sender's information. "Helen, this is the Santa mod I was telling you about. I was hoping we might be able to get it before Christmas." They certainly cut it close. "A mod? Is this something for Charles?" Helen asked. George sighed. "Yes, I told you about this weeks ago. It turns Charles into a Santa Claus." George walked over to the kitchen counter and grabbed a paring knife from the knife block. "That's nice, dear," Helen replied absently. Disappointed over Helen's lack of enthusiasm, George said, "At least the kids'll love it." Helen thought about it and replied, "Well, the twins'll love it, but Kevin'll hate it." "Well, Kevin is 16 years old. He hates everything." Helen sighed. "You're right about that." As George opened up the package and took out the Santa outfit, Helen changed subjects. "I wish you didn't have to work today. It's Christmas Eve." "We talked about this. It's either I work today or we'll have to cut our trip to Martha's Vineyard short," he said absently as he scanned the instructions for the mod. "I know, it's just that there's so much to do to get ready for our trip tomorrow." George laid the instructions on the table and looked at his wife. "You'll handle it beautifully. You always do," he said, looking at his watch. "Oh, I have to get going. I'll be home late." Turning to Charles, George gave instructions. "Charles, I need you to download the Christmas update and, after all the kids are in bed, put on the outfit and enable Santa mode." He indicated the clothes on the table. "You'll need to wrap the presents that are in my office and put them under the tree. Wake everyone up at 7 a.m. if we're not up already. You'll be passing out presents and singing Christmas carols. Have breakfast ready by 8:30. We'll need to be on the road by 10. "Yes, sir, it will be done," Charles said. George turned back to his wife. "I gotta go. Try and have a nice day," he said as he kissed her on top of her head. He turned and left the room. A few seconds later, Helen heard the front door open and shut. Helen sighed. So much to do, she thought. Rubbing her temples, she addressed Charles. "Charles, I need you to clean the house from top to bottom. I will not come back from vacation to a dirty house. Finish all of the laundry, pack our clothes for the trip, and make sure that the twins, especially Tommy, take a bath. Have lunch ready by noon and dinner ready by 7. She paused. Mr. Molson will not be joining us for dinner. If you have any issues, I'll be in my room. I need to lay down and rest for a bit." "Yes, ma'am, it will be done," Charles said. Helen left the room as Charles began cleaning. Kevin Molson sat on the edge of his bed, playing a video game. He was wearing a pair of thick VR goggles with opaque lenses. Soft pads covered each ear. His head and hands jerked back and forth as he worked an invisible joystick. "Yeah, this sucks. We'll be gone for over 2 weeks," Kevin said over the headset to his girlfriend. "Yeah, I'll miss you too, babe, but I'll call every night." He nodded and smiled. "Yeah, that would be sexy, and I promise I won't let anyone else see the pictures." Kevin listened for a few more minutes before slamming his hand down on the bed and yelling, "You bitch! What? Oh, no, not you. I just got fragged in the game. I hate campers." Charles knocked on Kevin's door and called out, "Master Kevin?" When he received no reply, he checked the data streams and identified Kevin's gaming stream. Tapping into it, he said, "Master Kevin, this is Charles. May I enter your room?" Kevin snarled, "Damn it, leave me alone!" No, not you, babe. Charles the fucking robot is being a pain in my ass again. You are so lucky you can't afford a robot maid. "Master Kevin, your mother has requested me to clean your room and pack your clothes for the trip," Charles stated. Kevin had learned that once Charles was set on a task, he would not relent until the task was complete. "Fine. Come in," Kevin said, mockingly. He tapped the side of his VR goggles, and the lenses became clear, allowing him to see the android enter his room. As Charles worked, quietly and efficiently, Kevin spent the time making fun of him to his girlfriend while knocking things off the dresser for Charles to pick up. Charles left Kevin's room and rolled down the hall to the bedroom of the twins. He heard a loud thump and laughter. Knocking on the door, he asked, "Master Tommy, Mistress Tammy, may I enter?" He heard whispering and more giggles. After a few moments, Tammy said, "Come in." When Charles entered the room, he saw 6-year-old Tammy sitting on the edge of the bed, both hands pressed against her mouth, trying to stifle the laughter. Charles rolled in and stopped a few feet from the bed. "Your mother tasked me with making sure you and your brother bathe, and I need to clean your room before you go to bed." Instead of answering, Tammy removed one hand from around her mouth and pointed behind Charles. Charles rotated his torso to look behind him just in time to see Tommy leaping off a bookshelf. Charles caught Tommy in midair and began to spin his torso around, increasingly faster. Tommy squealed with laughter the whole time. Charles stopped spinning and gently put Tommy down. The child took a couple of steps, stumbling like a drunk sailor, and plopped down on the floor, grinning like mad. Charles looked at the twins and asked, "Okay, who wants to get a bath first?" Each of them pointed at the other. Later that night, the only sound that could be heard in the house was the sound of Charles's treads as he maneuvered around the family room furniture and placed the last present, almost lovingly, under the tree. Charles examined the front of the red and white Santa jacket he was wearing and adjusted his hat before moving to the charging pod. He backed into the pod and powered down. December 25th, 12:30 a.m., New York, New York. A man dressed in a dark blue hoodie and ripped jeans put down his coffee and looked around at the other patrons in the small coffee shop. He was sitting at a small corner table and had spent the last few hours making sure that no one was paying him any attention. Checking the clock on the wall, he saw that it was time to start. He removed his portable wrist tablet from his left arm and sat it on the table. Unfolding the screen, he clicked on several icons, and it was soon connected to a Rollins Robotics Company data server. He made one last quick scan around the room, then typed, "Run, Deadly Night," into the display. After confirmation that his program ran, he took a last drink of coffee, put his tablet back on his wrist, and strolled out the door into the night. December 25th, 12:30 a.m., Port Presley, Maryland. Charles's head snapped up to attention, his gold skin reflecting moonlight behind his white beard. He tilted his head as if he was listening to something far away before he uncoupled from the power connection and began to roll through the living room. He crossed the hall into the kitchen and stopped in front of the counter. Reaching up, he withdrew a large chef's knife from the block. Humming a Christmas tune, he proceeded out into the hallway and then began ascending the stairs. The door to the main bedroom flew open, and Charles rushed in. "Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!" he exclaimed. Helen jerked awake, sitting upright in her bed. "What? What's going on?" Helen looked confused. "Why, it's Christmas, the most magical time of the year," Charles said in a deep, booming voice. Helen snapped, "It's the goddamn middle of the night. Go downstairs and be quiet until morning." "What?" Charles boomed. "And miss Christmas? We can't do that. You haven't even had your present yet." Charles rolled around to the side of the bed and plunged the kitchen knife into her stomach. "I made this just for you at the North Pole." Charles began singing Jingle Bells and stabbing to the beat of the song. Helen tried to scream, but all she could manage was a gurgle amid the rush of blood. In the other room, Kevin had his VR goggles on, floating through the net, looking for sites that show inappropriate images, the kind his parents wouldn't approve of. A few minutes earlier, he had wedged an old hockey stick in the doorframe to keep his parents out. After all, a teenager needs his privacy. He went to one of his favorite sites, the one that featured his favorite adult star. Finding a recent video of hers, he laid back and began to enjoy it, when a voice rang through his headset. "Oh, Kevin, naughty, naughty, don't you want to be on Santa's good list?" said a deep voice. Kevin sat up. "Who the hell is this? Get off my stream!" he yelled. "Come on now, Kevin. Be nice. Let Santa in. I want to give you your present," the voice said. Kevin tore the goggles off of his head, and he could now hear someone pounding on his bedroom door. The door was shaking in its frame, and the wood was beginning to splinter. Getting off the bed, Kevin could hear singing some old Christmas carol, and he noticed a metallic tone to the voice. Charles? Is that you?" Kevin asked, slowly approaching the door. "Some call me Kris Kringle, but the kids call me Santa. Ho, ho, ho," Charles bellowed from behind the door. "You finally flipped your circuits, man! You're crazy!" Kevin yelled back. There was a few moments of silence. Then, a thud as a knife was plunged through the door. "Jesus Christ!" Kevin exclaimed. He began to look around his room for a weapon. Any weapon. There was another thud as Charles plunged the knife through the door again. The knife was twisted about, widening the crack. Pulling it back, Charles was about to ram the knife through the door a third time when he registered movement from down the hall. Turning his head, he could see the twins staring at him from their bedroom doorway. Charles turned towards them, the white trim of his jacket soaked in blood. He spread his arms wide, welcoming. "Come on, children. Come and sit on Santa's knee. Tell me what you want for Christmas." Charles laughed jollily as he rolled forward toward the twins' room. The twins screamed and slammed their bedroom door closed. Kevin heard the scream and began to panic. He never realized how much he loved those little twerps. Until now. Finally remembering the baseball equipment in his closet, he ran over and started tearing through it. After a few moments, he emerged with an aluminum baseball bat. Charles got to the closed door of the twins' room and pushed it open. He began to sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer as he rolled into the room. Sobbing could be heard coming from under the nearest bed. As he rolled over to it, he heard something behind him. Spinning around, he spotted Tommy hiding next to the bookshelf. Tommy tried to run when Charles reached toward him, but the android grabbed Tommy by the neck. Holding him up in the air, Charles began to spin. As he spun his torso faster and faster, he began singing faster. He was soon rotating at a blinding speed, and when he sang the song's last words, he let go. Tommy flew through the air, hitting the wall above the headboard. His legs and head punched through the drywall, but his back hit a wall stud, cracking both the stud and his spine. Tommy slid limply down the wall and tumbled off the bed. Tammy was lying under the bed, her eyes squeezed shut, trying to hold back the tears. She felt something was wrong, that she was incomplete. She opened her eyes and stared into the unblinking gaze of her twin. His lifeless body sprawled on the carpet in front of her. As she began to scream, something grabbed her ankle and pulled her out from under the bed. She turned and looked at Charles. He looked back at her, grinning, and asked, "Hi, little girl. Would you like to sit on Santa's lap?" Kevin was finally able to open his door. Charles's assault on it had warped the door frame, causing the hockey stick to wedge it shut even tighter. It took quite a few swings with the bat to clear the wedge. When he stepped into the hall, he saw Tommy lying on the floor, twisted and bent in unnatural angles. Charles was pulling Tammy out from under the bed, holding her up by her ankles like a fisherman holds a prized catch. Spurred on by pure rage, Kevin ran up behind Charles and began to rain down blows from the baseball bat. Tammy tumbled to the floor as Charles let go of her, but Kevin kept on swinging. The android turned toward Kevin and reached out for him, but the unrelenting onslaught caused him to tip over. The bat rose and fell time and time again, while Charles began to sing Silent Night. George Molson entered his house after a long day. The kids would be getting up for Christmas morning in a few hours, but he should be able to catch a bit of sleep. He took off his jacket and hung it on the coat rack. Turning, he heard a grinding noise and noticed Charles entering the foyer. He looked to be in bad shape. A couple of treads were broken, his main shaft was bent, and he had a lot of large dents on his torso and head. He was also wearing the Santa jacket, but there seems to be something dark and crusty all over the front of it. "Charles, what happened? Is everything okay?" George asked. "Everything is fine, my lad. It's Christmas! Ho, ho, ho!" Charles replied. "Charles, exit Santa mode and tell me what's going on," George said, the concern growing in his voice. "Come this way, young man. Come, get your gift from under the tree." Charles began rolling toward the living room, herding George along in front of him. "What the hell is going on here? Are Helen and the kids okay? Wait, is that dried blood on your jacket?" George kept backing up as Charles pushed him into the living room. "Now, young man, choose a gift," Charles boomed, pointing toward the far wall. George glanced that way and did a double take, all color leaving his face as he realized that the Christmas tree had new ornaments, ones made up of fingers and toes and other bits of human flesh. "Oh, God!" George moaned as he covered his mouth, trying not to be sick. He stumbled away from Charles, his back hitting the brick of the fireplace. He looked up and saw 4 new objects hanging from the mantel. These were not the stockings that they hung with care last week. These were heads. Human heads, each with a bright red bow in the middle of their forehead. George fell to his knees sobbing. "Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!" Charles said as he raised a knife. December 25th, San Francisco, California. Percy Billington, CEO and founder of Modern Robotics, Inc., sat at his desk and looked at a wall of monitors, each tuned into a different news broadcast. Occasionally, he tapped a button on a control panel to unmute a specific channel. Monitor 27. Getting dozens of reports of death at the hands of android servants in the Houston area. Police are still trying to determine the extent of these bizarre attacks. Monitor 12. Have no idea why the robotic butlers would begin killing their owners. We have reports of killings in other states, so it would appear that this is not confined to the Indianapolis area. Monitor 40. It appears that the family was sitting down to open presents when their android butler began its violent attack. Wait, I'm being told that there are reports of other attacks in London. We're trying to confirm those rumors right now. Percy's phone buzzed, and he looked down to see a text message scrolling across the screen. It appears that Operation Deadly Night was a success, it read. Percy replied, "Beyond expectations." "And the rest of my money?" the reply asked. Percy punched a couple of keys on his keyboard and replied, "Sent." After a few minutes, he received a final text. "Payment verified. Pleasure doing business with you." Percy sat back and enjoyed the moment, allowing himself a quick smile. Great success requires taking risks, and it seemed like this one was going to pay off. Celebration over, he resumed his solemn demeanor. He clicked a button and replaced the newscasts with live images of members of the Modern Robotics board and other key employees. Clicking his microphone live, he spoke, his deliberate, slow, soft voice slicing through the air. "Gentlemen and ladies, it seems that there has been some incidences involving android servants attacking and potentially killing their owners. I have it on good authority that this issue is restricted to the Rollins Robotics line of X7 androids. We all agree that this is a tragedy, and our hearts go out to the victims, but we need to recognize that this does present an opportunity. With our new line of android hitting the market next month, we had projected that sales would be sluggish. However, with these new and tragic circumstances, we have an opportunity to capture market share from RRC. We will have our friends in the media highlight the dangers of the X7 line and the advances we've made in security and safety for our new EB1 series. People will see our new line as a safe alternative. It's vital that we move on this quickly, and I expect everyone to be in the office in 3 hours for an in-person strategy meeting." Todd Atkins, Assistant Director of Research, raised his hand. When Percy acknowledged him, Todd spoke. Sir, I understand the importance of this, but it's Christmas." Percy leaned in until his face filled up the screen. "Christmas?" he said. "Bah, humbug." Dead Silent Night by David O'Hanlon. Gemma's orgasms reminded Derek of Flipper reruns. It was why he'd stopped fucking her in the first place. That and her clothes always left cat hair on his bedspread. Derek hated cats, but no one wants to spend the holidays jingling their own bells. So Derek made sure he was coincidentally strolling through the shopping center where Gemma taught aerobics, and sweet-talked his way back into her good graces and her great places. Derek would cut her loose again around mid-January. That would give her enough time to find a date before Valentine's. He imagined it sucked being a single chick on V-Day, and since he was a considerate piece of shit, he'd do her that small favor. Besides, January was a target-rich environment, and he didn't need any other entanglements. Once the chubbies got on their New Year, New Me bullshit, all Derek had to do was smile. That was enough to reassure them that the fad diet and power walking were working. A different pig in the blankets every night of the week. Derek wasn't picky about where his beef bus stopped, as long as the passengers disembarked nightly. Besides, it kept him distracted from his other interests, and that kept him out of trouble. So he went back to harpooning the porpoise with purpose. Gemma dug her fingernails into his chest as she slammed herself down on his Yule log. She was getting closer and closer to another orgasm, and the high-pitched squeaking got him further and further away from his own. Derek squeezed his eyes shut tight and tried to focus on the task at hand. Moisture warmly splattered up his chest. He raised a brow without opening his eyes. She was still grinding down on him. She tensed and quivered, but she was quiet. Derek looked up at her, and the glistening sweep of steel protruding from below her chin. Oh no, not again, he thought. The blade tore down, cracking noisily through her sternum. Her bisected heart pumped a money shot over Derek's face and the $600 sheets. The weapon retracted, Gemma's shoulders slumped, and her head lolled forward as if to inspect the damage. Derek's unblinking gaze focused on the precise wound. The little fuckers were meticulous in everything they did. That's how they made such wonderful toys. Derek heard the tinkering of bells on the tips of the curly-toed shoes from behind Gemma. Her body tipped forward and covered Derek's torso. The little figure walked up her back and stood on her shoulder blades to look down on Derek. It cleaned out a pointy ear with an equally pointy talon on its pinky and smiled with its interlocking chompers. A high-pitched giggle started in the thing's bloated belly. "You're in a bit of a pickle, Pally," the elf told him. It scooped Gemma's panties off the headboard with the tip of the sword. "Hate to tell you, but that's the last present you'll be unwrapping." But... No! Derek shook his head and continued muttering. "Right, I know. I got the wrong Derek. It's all a big mix-up. Heard it all before." The elf's bulbous eyes rolled. "Heard it from you, as a matter of fact." The creature wasn't wrong. The commercialization of Christmas meant all the little crotch goblins got presents no matter how naughty they were, which upset the universal balance of good and evil. You wouldn't think an action figure would be that big of a deal, but that's how it always starts. Give little Timmy a He-Man, and the next thing you know, he's strangling lot lizards on the I-40. And despite what 10-year-old Derek was caught doing with stepmommy's dirty panties, the peephole in his sister's closet, and the incident with Meemaw's Electrolux, he's still got a brand spanking new Bravestar Fort Kyrium playset for Christmas, and a lump of coal to remind him to change his ways. Of course, he didn't take the hint, so the next year, he got a visit from Peppermint Ray. If Santa could no longer reward good behavior with bribes of handcrafted toys, then the only reasonable course of action was to send his pre-diabetic horde of mercenary fairy folk to murder the shit out of the bad children. Not all the elves were happy about the drastic change in job duties, but luckily for old Saint Nick, Peppermint Ray found taking kiddos apart far easier than putting toys together, and infinitely more fun. However, he wasn't the sharpest carving knife in the workshop drawer. When he went to punish little Derek, the boy easily convinced Ray that he had the wrong house. In the 15 years since, 3 other elves had attempted to correct the mistake, Peppermint Ray wore a sterling candy cane on a chain around his neck, in memory of each of them. Derek squirmed beneath Gemma's body. For someone so light and fit, her corpse might as well have been an anvil. Ray gently draped Gemma's panties over Derek's face and raised the curved sword overhead. Derek stretched out a hand, groping blindly for help. His fingers curled around the cold steel loop. Round one of the night had, thankfully, involved some light bondage. He glanced up at Ray through the sheer lace thong and jerked himself hard to the side by the handcuffs hanging from the headboard. The pillow erupted, and the elf went face first into the sheetrock through a blizzard of feathers. Derek hung over the side of the bed, with Gemma still pinning him in place. He twisted and pulled himself away, keeping his eyes locked on Peppermint Ray. The wicked elf looked up at Derek's mirror ceiling and blew bloody indigo snot from his nostrils before cracking the crooked schnoz back into shape. Derek's sweaty ass squeaked across the wood floor as he pushed himself toward the door. Ray straightened his hat and hopped calmly down from his perch. "That one's gonna cost you, Pally," the elf hissed. Derek rolled over and jumped to his feet, bursting forward out of the bedroom with the frantic tickling of Ray's bells giving chase. Derek twisted, taking a precious second to pull the door shut. He cranked back the knob and prayed his size would be enough to hold it. The Tomtian scimitar crashed through the door. Its hollow ground edge stopped shy of giving Derek the circumcision his parents had skipped. A single drop of blood rolled off the tip of the retreating organ. Derek ran down the hallway, shrieking the whole way. Ray pressed his face to the gash in the door. "I'm going to turn your guts into garland!" Derek suddenly regretted buying the ostentatious 5-bedroom home. Sure, there were lots of places to hide, but you can't hide from an elf. Not on Christmas. That meant escape was his only option, and the front door felt miles away. The doorknob banged into the bedroom wall, followed by the sound of Ray's pursuit. The pitter-patter of his tiny feet and jingling of his bells that fell into an adorable, terrifying cadence. Slap, tinkle, slap, tinkle, slap, tinkle. Derek's trembling fingers fumbled with the chain lock, finally popped it out of place, and then moved to the deadbolt. Ray raised the curved sword overhead as he charged and let out a piercing battle cry. Derek jerked the door open. The frigid air sent shivers and goosebumps rioting across his body. His jaw hung in a silent scream. His thigh warmed with the sputtering stream of piss cascading down it. The reindeer's obsidian glare met Derek's as it chomped the nub of a severed arm and sucked it into its maw like human spaghetti until only the wiggling fingers stuck out between its lips. Derek whipped his head back and forth from the beast to the psycho elf again and again until the motion jarred loose a rational thought. He launched a kick straight into Ray's chin and sent him reeling across the floor like a festive 30-pound sack of potatoes. Derek quickly resecured the door and darted into the living room. An elf's senses were highest the closer they got to Christmas, when they needed absolute concentration to fulfill their toy-making duties. A concussion, probably, hopefully, would dull those senses. Derek wriggled between the wall and the back of the couch. It was a stupid place to hide, but he didn't spend enough time at home to warrant excessive furnishings. Peppermint Ray sat up and tested the looseness of his teeth with his forked tongue. An incisor rocked in its socket, drawing a frustrated growl from the tiny terror. He collected himself from the floor. His scimitar shimmered in a sliver of light from the ajar bathroom door. He waved it off and reached for the red-striped handle on his belt. The silver bells on the dagger's sheath chimed as he unsheathed the blade. He held it up and read the inscription Santa had personally etched into the side on Ray's 1000th kill. "Jolly is the kill, for goodness sake. fucking A right it is, fat man. Ray pattered into the living room. Derek tried to focus his hearing on anything other than the pounding of his own heart. The elf would give himself away with the noisy decorations of his uniform, but only if Derek could concentrate. He bit down hard to keep his teeth from chattering. A muffled tinkle pricked his ears. Derek turned his head to look up at the top of the couch, fully expecting Ray to be waiting. But he wasn't. Then suddenly, there arose such a clatter. Rustling branches, snapping twigs, and shattering ornaments overloaded his senses. The flickering, multicolored lights cast their rhythmic light show on the ceiling from the tree's new location. Ceramic huts and figures smashed on the hearth as Ray Godzilla'd the dickens out of the model Christmas village on the mantel. Derek clenched his fists until the knuckles popped. Chicks loved that fucking village. Santa's surly assassin was throwing a tantrum and destroying Derek's apartment because he couldn't find his prey. A smile creased Derek's face. He can't find me. That kick to the face turned his brain to eggnog. I'm gonna make it. He can't find me, he thought to himself, raising a quivering hand to cover his mouth and stifle the yip of happiness. The silver bells began to ring as they clacked across the floor like dice and struck the wall trim. They shined brightly at the end of the couch, inches from Derek's face. Ray knew exactly where Derek was hiding. His tiny footsteps were imperceptible with his bells removed. He could come from anywhere. Right on cue, the strand of lights dropped over the back of the sofa and looped over Derek's head. Ray easily jerked Derek up to his knees. The elf tightened the jolly garrote around his dainty fists, digging the twinkling plastic barbs into his victim's throat. It's the 12th day of Christmas for you, Pally! Ray put a foot on Derek's shoulder for more leverage. Blood spurted around the luminescent fangs. You murdered elves! Tom Tinkle, Sparky Charlie, and... that fucking nitwit from the repaint department. You were supposed to be his first kill. I wish I could make this last all night. Derek forced himself to stand, and Ray hung from the braided cord, squeezing consciousness from Derek even quicker. The human twisted his body, slamming Ray into the wall. He reached back, knocking the floppy cap from Ray's head, and seized a fistful of stiff white hair. Ray howled in pain. The cord tightened, and Ray pushed off the wall with his feet. They crashed through a French door, landing halfway into the dining room. Derek managed to roll over in time to catch a petite punch right between the eyes. Would you look at that, Derek? Ray jerked a thumb towards the jam. Mistletoe. How about a kiss? Ray's tongue lashed across Derek's terrified face. Then he bit down on the man's cheek. Derek squealed and bashed at Ray's body. The elf shook his head side to side, tearing a hole deep enough to see Derek's molars through. Derek slugged Ray in the gut and flung him off. The would-be killer smacked against the hardwood. Derek staggered upright as Ray rose to his feet with a chuckle. The downed pine separated the two combatants. Ray unsheathed his dagger and tossed it between his hands and began to whistle a melody. Can't we make a deal? Derek whined. Stalking around the Christmas tree, he sang hoarsely. Have a happy slaughtering. Everyone dies eventually in ways that are sickening. Ray chuckled at his own artistic genius, shuffling closer to the base of the tree. Derek raised his fists, unsure of exactly how he was going to punch someone 3 foot shorter than himself. Then he saw another option. He needed a distraction. I'm a pervert, he admitted. I'm a womanizer. I like to fuck. A lot. Maybe if you'd lay off the sweets, you could still see your own ornaments when you look down. Ray glanced at his pot belly and growled. You'd understand then, I bet, Derek continued. What did I do that makes me deserve to die? Like you've never rubbed one out to Mrs. Claus. You keep her out of this! You have, haven't you? Derek forced a laugh. Or is it all that sugar giving you marshmallow dick? Since when is getting laid a capital offense? Ray knelt and tapped the dagger on the floor. Forget what's in your basement, Pally? Derek gulped. Santa sees it all, Ray said. He's got a special list for your kind of naughty. Derek dropped to the floor and grabbed the tree's star. Ray brought his hand up as the ornament whizzed through the air and buried deep into his forearm. Mother! Ah! The elf ripped it from the puckered wound and snapped it in half. Derek was gone when he looked up. His nose twitched up and down as he sniffed the air. The human's nakedness made it easier to pick up the scent of fear oozing from his skin. Ray knelt, placing a hand on the floor. An elf's tactile sense had to be hyperactive to make the best toys. He could feel the vibrations of Derek's footsteps in the kitchen. There would be weapons in there. Ray scowled. Fine, Pally. We'll do it your way. Ray clenched the knife between his teeth and slithered across the floor. Derek rocked in place on the kitchen floor. He kept his eyes on the basement door. The fat old bastard couldn't know. Not really. There was no way he could see everything in the world at the same time. Could he? He thought about opening the door, giving up the collection like a peace offering, and turning over a new leaf. It could be his New Year's resolution. Then Peppermint Ray would let him go. He'd have to, because that would make Derek a good boy again. That's what he needed to do. It would work. Derek stopped rocking and rose to the balls of his feet. Eye shine under the dining table made his heart sputter. Ray's forked tongue licked greedily across his lips. Truce! Derek shouted. Ray stabbed his dagger into the tile, sending shards flying as he sprang from the hiding spot. Derek raised his hands. Ray gritted his teeth, pushing his little legs to run faster. Derek struck the lighter and sprayed the oven cleaner through it. Mrs. Claus made fine suits for all the elves. Unfortunately, none of them met the NFPA standard for fire resistance. Ray leapt into the air, becoming a living comet that smashed bodily into his victim's face. The dagger slid across the floor along with 4 of Derek's teeth. The elf rolled away, slapping at the flames and spewing profanities, while Derek cackled. I can smell your chestnuts roasting, Shorty, Derek spat. Derek pulled himself up by the edge of the counter. His split lip poured blood down his naked torso as they curled in a painful smile. Peppermint Ray tumbled across the floor and disappeared into the open pantry with a thud. Precariously stacked items toppled onto him. The entire space flared up into an inferno. How many more elves could Santa lose to kill one person? Besides, Derek wasn't a child anymore. The fat fuck was working outside his jurisdiction. Derek limped out of the kitchen. Extinguishing the fire might save the elf, and he couldn't risk that. Unfortunately, burning the house down was going to be a bigger problem. It might take a day or two, but eventually someone was going to want answers about the contents of the basement. Derek needed to get dressed, grab a few essentials, and find an ATM before his accounts were frozen. He could patch his wounds on the road. Something in the hallway caught his eye. He stood over the Tomtian scimitar and snickered. The sword wasn't much bigger than the butcher's knife he kept for barbecues. He bent over to retrieve the weapon and was surprised by the weight of the minuscule thing. The veins bulged in his forearm as he hefted it up. He'd never realized how strong the elves actually were. Tiny engraved snowflakes decorated the spine of the sword and steamed gently as if they were really cold. The magic of the North Pole seemed limitless. Derek wondered what it would be like to wield such power. He ran his thumb over the edge of the weapon and hissed. The slight contact had opened a deep gash. If he could kill elves so easily, then one old, obese human shouldn't be an issue. He put the damaged digit into his mouth and sucked softly, humming Last Christmas as he contemplated a trip to the North Pole. Killing Santa would solve everything. Oh, holy shit, the raspy voice hissed. You fucked up big time, Pally. A smell something akin to burnt gingerbread cookies wafted around him. Derek turned slowly. Ray looked more like jerky than peppermint. White teeth locked together in a smile surrounded by charred, black flesh speckled with raw muscle showing through. His hair was completely gone. So were his clothes, for the most part. The dagger was still there and made even shinier in contrast to its crispy owner. You know the hardest thing about being an elf, Pally? Ray asked. Reaching the urinal, Derek raised the sword. You're a regular Bob Saget, huh, wise ass? Ray scratched at his cheek, peeling off a hunk of burnt skin. More pieces dropped away on their own. It's Christmas, Derek. That's the bitch of being an elf. I only get one day a year to kill people like you. You won't have to worry about that anymore. This is the last time. What the fuck? Bare feet, 9 pairs of them, padded into the hallway. Derek looked at the young women, one after the other, and then the children, his children, that they sheltered behind them. They were disheveled, pale, and underfed, but every one of them was smiling. The elf had gotten into the basement. More of the damaged skin fell away, revealing slimy, wrinkled new growth beneath. Ray shook like a dog in the rain and slung the old flesh away. It splattered and plopped around the hall. Bits still clung to him. But he was healing. Santa's power isn't kept at the pole, Pally, Ray said. It's kept in the hearts of the children. They believe, and we keep on keeping on. It's the magic of Christmas. We believe in Santa, one of the children whispered. Another reaffirmed it louder. Then the others, the ones old enough to speak anyhow. And in Christmas miracles, Marcy Weber stepped beside Ray. And in elves. A tear rolled down her cheek the same way it had when Derek held the chloroformed rag over her mouth and nose outside of her sorority 6 years ago. She was his favorite out of the whole collection. She aimed a finger at Derek. You've been very naughty, she said. Derek let the scimitar fall and was in a dead sprint before it clattered to the floor. His legs pumped furiously. Ray sprang after him. The window at the end of the hallway exploded inward. Derek's feet hit the shards before they could stop. They sliced and stabbed into his soles. The bloody pads made him slide around before he crashed into the wall and fell to all fours. The figure that lumbered through the empty pane stretched and towered over him. The heavy woolen coat hung to the ankles of the snow-caked leather boots. Ice-gripping spikes tore divots from the hardwood floor as the stranger clomped closer to Derek. Derek kept his head down and stared intently at those boots and the ruddy stains of the fur-lining coat. The man stopped in front of Derek and let a heavy, olive-green sack thump beside him. "Look at me, boy!" Each word was a thunderclap. Raw, supernatural power emanated from every syllable. He stepped on Derek's hand, pressing the spikes through the appendage with ease. "I said, look at me!" Derek shook his head. The man huffed and knelt. His mittened hand squeezed the sides of Derek's skull and tilted his face up to stare him in the eyes. The bushy, stark white beard dripped with melting snow. His platinum gaze drilled deep into Derek's mind. Bones popped as the fat man increased the pressure of his hold. "I know when you've been bad or good," his voice boomed. "And I know what you're thinking. I once sent you a lump of coal as a warning to change your ways. You did not take heed." I learned my lesson," Derek stammered. You can go. I'm good now. They're free. I'm letting them go. I'm changed. Yeah, like Scrooge." "No, Pally," Ray said. You're just screwed. Ray thrust the knife forward. Derek howled in agony. Right up the chimney. Ray twisted the dagger with a gleeful hoot before cutting through Derek's pelvis.
Was that necessary, Ray? Santa asked, standing back to his full height.
Not particularly, the elf admitted with a shrug. But it brightened my night like 25,000 twinkling little bulbs. Santa groaned and looked down at the figure at his feet. Intestines unspooled through the gaping wound as Derek writhed in place. Ray peeled a remaining strip of his old, burnt husk away and flicked it onto Derek's back before walking outside. Santa looked at the women and children, then to the spreading flames, and finally back to Derek.
It's beginning to look a lot like crispness. Ho, ho, ho!
He bellowed with laughter that did, indeed, make his belly jiggle like a bowl full of jelly. He gathered his sack and the survivors and guided them outside. They opened their presents and quickly dressed in the new coats and boots the old man had brought for them. Peppermint Ray had clambered up the harness of his faithful steed and sat on its broad back. Santa made his way to them, giving the reindeer a reassuring pat on the shoulder. He rubbed the massive creature's ear and looked up at Ray. Don't got your finger on the pulse of it no more, do you, boss? Ray asked with a crooked grin. No one wants clothes for Christmas. Besides, the arsen'll keep 'em warm until the cops show up. Santa glanced back at the conflagration.
Wasn't exactly subtle?
Ain't nothing subtle about peppermint, Ray snorted.
You did good tonight. Why don't you take the rest of the evening off?
Not a chance, boss. The sleigh bells are ringing and they're playing my favorite tune. He scratched the reindeer's back. Me and old Brutecake got a lot of stops before the sun's up.
There is a considerable backlog to clear off the naughty list, I suppose.
Santa stepped back and gestured for them to go.
I'll see you in the morning, then. Merry Christmas, Ray.
Onward, Brutecake! Ray clicked his tongue, signaling the reindeer for takeoff. Merry Christmas, boss! The beast charged up the driveway and leapt into the air, blasting off into the night. The twinkling wake of its departure sparkled and crackled among the snowflakes. Santa waved to them as they flew over the inferno. Merry Christmas to all! Ray howled. And to all, a good night.
"12 Days" by Mike Ashkewe. To whom it may concern. The following data logs were recovered from the wreckage and flight recorder of the United Earth Colony ship Roanoke in the year 2370. The data contained within is from the lone custodial engineer aboard the vessel during its journey to the proposed colony site on planet LV, Life Viable, 529. The original colony mission was launched from Pluto Station in 2280 and was projected to take 25 years. Support staff, their families, as well as a number of colonists were estimated to have numbered at 2,000. All crew and support staff are presumed to have perished under questionable circumstances between December 12, 2290 and December 25, 2290. Certain portions of the record have been redacted to protect United Earth military interests and to protect certain individuals as well. Records will officially become available for public consumption in January 2500 via Freedom of Information request. Please retain all confidential information as eyes-only clearance. Contact your United Earth Military Science Division support officer for additional questions and follow-up. Sincerely, Recovery Officer, Titan Outpost, Aaron Ricci. Date, February 2nd, 2375. Roanoke Colony Ship Flight Recorder Data Stream begins. Audio Log, Number 1. December 12th, 2290. Good morning? Is this thing on? This is Custodial Engineer David Lambert, and this is my maintenance shift aboard the Roanoke. My logs will be recorded via audio and by the ship's virtual intelligence, aka Vinny. Well, Ma, you always wanted me to go out and get a job, and well, here I am.
I'm on the frontier of space and with a whole new family of about 2,000. Maybe now I'll find a wife, eh? Or maybe a husband. I've always considered dating an android too, so maybe we can have robo-babies. A brave new world for me. It's December 12th, and I'm the only one awake aboard the ship while everyone else is in cryosleep for the next several months. They need someone to make sure we don't bounce too close to a star or accidentally veer off course. Now, odds are I'll volunteer and run a maintenance shift again and let everyone stay frozen, and I'll stay awake for 2 weeks and maintain the systems. They only need a person to stay awake for a few weeks at a time to maintain things and then go back to sleep for a few months. Then rinse and repeat. It's like I'm a captain of my own ship in a sense. I'll wake up again in March, make sure we're all still alive and going where we're supposed to go, and not wake up any of the United Earth stuffed shirts unless I have to. It's lonely, but I don't mind. I have Vinny to keep me company and the entire Library of Congress on Holo and every soccer match in history. I'll be alright. It's Christmas time here and, well, I'm gonna decorate, even if it's only for myself and Vinny. I managed to make some tinsel out of some stuff I found in the engineering tool room. I think it's fiber optics of some sort or maybe some of that nanotube stuff. I think maybe tomorrow I'll see if I can put up a tree or some sort in the mess hall. I know it's just me and the AI, but it at least makes me feel somewhat like home while I'm here. I'll check the computer systems, life support, and make sure the slipstream drive's output is within acceptable range. We won't hit our first milestone for another few years of this journey, but gotta make sure I cross the I's and dot the T's. Wait, is that the phrase? Fuck it, never mind. Vinny, end audio log number 1. Audio log number 2, December 13th, 2290. Log day 2 of maintenance shift. I was checking the computer logs yesterday and found something, weird. Seems like about 2 weeks ago we had a small containment breach in one of the lower science laboratories. It was supposed to be related to something that some of the scientists had called...
Redacted.
Sounds kinda scary to me, but none of my business. Don't know how I feel about them messing with...
Redacted.
But then again, I'm not supposed to understand it. It was likely caused when we came a little close to a radiation anomaly while in slip space. Vinny, the ship's computer, chose not to wake anyone up because it was deemed not a threat, but did note it in the ship's log. Guess I didn't see it till this morning when I went through it all manually. Weird. No one should get too pissy at me, right? Vinny, why didn't you wake anyone up? Is that you being nice by letting us sleep in the freezers a bit longer, or is it a malfunction in your computer core? Guess I'll take a look tomorrow, but right now I have more important things to do. I found an old robotic exoskeleton that I can turn into a kind of Christmas tree. I'll probably decorate it tonight and listen to old Christmas tunes while doing my reports. My moms and I used to always celebrate Christmas and make it a big deal. We'd have hot cocoa and watch Hollows, and we'd have a ski trip too. I miss my moms. Come to think of it, will they even be alive when we reach the new colony? Can't even send a transmission in Slipstream without a massive time delay. I hope they're okay. Audio log number 3, December 14th, 2290. I went down to the
Redacted.
Lab this morning and it's a mess. Stuff was strewn everywhere and it seems something broke out of one of the organic experiment labs. It's supposed to be harmless genetic experimentation. I think stuff with grown hormones and cross species. Dr.
Redacted.
Is not going to be happy. She always seemed grumpy anyway, so what do I care? I've noted it with Vinny and internal sensors are actively sweeping each deck. What more can I do? All biologics are supposed to be frozen solid for the trip, or at least in minimal activity and securely monitored for 25 years. I don't think it's dangerous. I mean, it's probably some designer animal that somebody wants to field test on a new planet. If it was dangerous at all, Vinny would have warned me. Maybe it's a kitty. Would that be too much to hope for? I know the
Redacted.
lab is secure at least. Vinny has the doors hermetically sealed. It'll take a scientist's authorization. It's someone else's problem now. I've cleaned up and secured the lab as best I can and accounted for all the labeled growth experiments. All experiment pods are locked up tight and cryo seals are in place. Likely gonna set up in the mess hall tonight and watch a bunch of movies and maybe rehydrate a turkey dinner. It'll be a nice way to unwind after the day I've had. Audio log number 4, December 16th, 2290. Something bad happened this morning. I'm sorry to report that we lost a portion of the crew. Vinny is still compiling data now, but it seems like there was an accident in one of the cryopod's bays. Most of the military crew's pods failed. There was a malfunction inside their cryopods and it flooded them with the freezing solution. They were basically all frozen solid and the bodies were destroyed in a way that I don't care to describe for the record. Vinny can explain in a more scientifically detailed method if you wish. The poor bastards didn't feel a thing. I don't think so anyway. We lost 300 people in the blink of an eye. I'm at a loss for words. I'll perform my full account of the dead and then I'll begin procedures to wake up the command crew and inform them of what happened. I don't want to be alone anymore. Weirdest thing though, there was music playing in the cryo bay as I entered. It was Silent Night. I didn't do that. But if I didn't do that, then who did? That has to be my imagination. Too many long hours stuck on this boat. Audio log number 6, December 17th, 2290. I can't bring the other cryopods online. The command crew, the support staff, I can't even wake up another custodial engineer. The system refuses to respond. Vinny is reporting a system-wide failure relating to the reanimation system caused by yesterday's failure. It believes it can be repaired, but it'll involve taking him offline for several days while it runs low-level diagnostics. It would just be me and the ship and maybe whatever else is on board. This has to be just an accident and a coincidence. I'll clean up as respectfully as I can, but I may let the ship's reclamation and automated systems deal with it. A burial in space isn't so bad, right? I know they deserve better, but look, I'm just a custodian. I don't get paid enough to put people into buckets to be later identified. I'm not overly religious, but maybe I'll pray for them tonight or something. Say a few nice things. I'll say something. Anything. Wait, strike that from the record, please. Shit. Vinny's offline. Please strike that from the record. Fuck. Audio log number 7, December 19th, 2290. Vinny is still offline and repairing themselves. Something weird is going on here. Internal motion sensors keep going off on random decks. I've had motion detected on the engineering level, recreation centers, and even some in the nursery cryopods. I still am unable to wake the crew. I even went down to the main command level and tried to manually override the captain's pod. She's still sound asleep. Communications are also completely offline as well. According to the logs, they were manually taken offline over a month ago. Something is wrong here. I'm afraid to go to sleep right now. I'm going to go down to the armory and get a gun and sleep with it beside me. Probably overkill, though. What was that thing that Mom used to say? Happiness is a warm gun. It'll make me feel safer if I get a gun. I'm getting a gun. Audio log number 8, December 20th, 2290. Life support keeps flicking on and off between the decks. Sometimes it's perfectly warm and suitable for people, and other times It's almost as cold as the vacuum outside the ship. Internal alarms keep going off in the
redacted
room and now in the computer core. I can't get into the lab area, though. I sealed it off a few days ago, and without Dr.
redacted
authorization or one of her flunkies, I'm locked out. I guess I could try blowing the door and seeing what happens, but I don't want to risk rupturing the bulkheads. I doubt that seismic survey charges would work anyway. I went through the mess hall today and sat by my Christmas tree and tried to find a few minutes to get my thoughts together. I thought I'd feel safer here. Someplace familiar. It didn't work. I swear the exoskeleton suit had moved where I'd put it. Now I haven't slept a lot in the last 24 hours, so I could be imagining it. I'm also positive I faintly heard something over the ship's intercoms. Like it was something only I could hear. Again, I haven't been sleeping well. Vinny should be back online soon, then I won't be alone. He'll wake up the crew and I won't be alone. I won't need this gun anymore. Oh yeah, this is David Lambert or whatever. Christ, I need to sleep. Audio log number 9, December 22nd, 2290. More are dead. I think we lost around 800 in the middle of the night. What in the fuck happened? The pods are flooded. They drowned in their sleep. Even the kids. Vinny came back online for a few but isn't responsive to commands. He won't even say hello to me. Just silence, but I know he can hear me. I know it sounds crazy, but I know I heard something laughing over the intercoms when I entered the colonists' cryogenics section. Internal sensors went offline, but not before I saw something on the monitors. That robotic exoskeleton was walking around the corridors. It doesn't even have a computer core. It's a fucking husk. It can't act independently. I am not fucking crazy. Why am I still recording these? Someone has to know what the fuck is happening here. I am not crazy. I didn't kill these people. Mom, I'm sorry I didn't say goodbye to you. To either of you. Please, God. Help me. Audio log number 10, December 23rd, 2290. I'm being hunted now. Vinny isn't a virtual intelligence. It's an artificial intelligence, and whatever it is, wants me dead. Something escaped from the
redacted
labs and contaminated the biological portions of his computer core. Vinny took the exoskeleton and is hunting me, deck by deck. Vinny is alive and has a body now. He is the ship and at the same time is stalking the ship in a robotic suit that I just had to drag up from storage. Power randomly fluxes off across the different decks and sections. Vinny controls the ship. If the rest of the crew isn't dead by now, they soon will be. I took this portable recorder which goes directly to the flight recorder, which is independent of his operating systems. I don't think the pistol I have can pierce the exoskeleton's plating. It's funny. I'm going to be murdered by something that was supposed to bring me joy. Did I mention I made it a funny little Santa hat and beard? I'm going to die out here. And there isn't a whole lot I can do about it. I thought we were friends, Vinny. Didn't I treat you right? I thought we were friends. Audio log number 11, December 24th, 2290. Vinny is slowly siphoning off the air on the ship. I'll suffocate in less than 24 hours, and there isn't a lot that I can do about it. I can't get into the vehicle section to even get a spacesuit. The bay is locked tight, and even if I could, Vinny blew the doors and all the suits, vehicles, and everything. was blown into space. I don't even think we're in slipspace anymore. I don't feel the hum of the engines anymore. I think Vinny is toying with me now. He's playing with the environmental controls and it's starting to get colder where I am. I can see my breath and it's so cold. I can't even hold the pistol steady. The ship's speakers are playing Santa Claus Is Comin to Town at a frequency that only I can hear. I fucking hate Christmas. Maybe I have one last thing I can do before I eventually suffocate. I'm not going to let this son of a bitch take me down, not without a fight. Ho, 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 motherfucker. Final data entry for United Earth Colony ship Roanoke. Custodial engineer David Lambert initiated liquid nitrogen purge in the engineering deck, critically damaging all systems and leaving the ship adrift on December 25th, 2090 at 12:01 a.m. Ship has suffered critical engine failure to slipstream drive. Ship no longer able to complete mission objectives. Ship's virtual intelligence disabled by unknown user. Experiment
redacted.
Unaccounted for as of December 25th, 2090. Escape pod launched with 0 biological life signs aboard. All crew and support staff dead due to catastrophic failure across multiple systems. Cause, likely sabotage. Internal reporting of mental instability of crew member custodial engineer David Lambert, likely responsible for crew and vessel destruction. Recommend investigation and activation of
redacted
protocol. Distress beacon activated on December 31st, 2090 by unknown user awaiting salvage and recovery operations. End transmission. A Christmas to Remember by Joe Solmo. Donnie shifted his old Ford pickup into gear as he left the rest stop. It should be the last gas stop before he was finally home. It had been a few years, and to be honest, for a while, he couldn't have made the trip even if he wanted to. He merged with traffic just as the snow started to fall. It looked like it was going to be a white Christmas, after all. He was both excited and apprehensive, if he was being honest. He left home almost 10 years ago and never looked back, heading south, running from something that even he couldn't name. Just a feeling. He always hated the North, and it bothered him to think he would die there. He headed to Fort Lauderdale as soon as he could, for a better life, where he almost instantly got hooked on heroin and became homeless, the shame of which kept him from calling home for help. At least at first. Then it got harder and harder for him to reach out, playing out his family's scrutiny in his brain over and over. He could just hear them calling him a junkie and a loser. Every time someone overdosed next to him at night under the yellow streetlights, and he was so high and scared all he could do was watch, another part of that kid that moved south left him, until looking into the puddle's reflection, even he didn't recognize who he was. Florida was such an evil, soul-sucking place, he would think at times like that. It destroyed who he was and replaced him with this junkie in his skin. He didn't know whose eyes looked back at him with the disheveled beard, the worn and torn Nirvana t-shirt, and the shorts that used to be pants until he ripped them jumping a chain-link fence to get away from the cops. The first year was rough, but it got easier as Donnie fell into the groove, got used to it. An old Japanese man taught him to steal hot dogs from the grocery store. He wouldn't eat them, though. He'd walk down to the canals, cut a small piece off, and use them to catch fish. Tenkara, or something he called it. He could catch enough fish to keep the cluster of junkies fed. It was a real loss when he died. But Donnie did find his wallet. He had money in there. Real money. A couple $100. The next few weeks were a drug-induced blur. He made sure his family got his wallet back, though, even if it had no cash inside. The Ford's engine roared on the highway. It probably needed a muffler, to be honest. He could feel the vibration coming up through the seat and steering wheel. The smell of exhaust was strong. He fiddled with the radio, trying to remember the channels he used to listen to back in the day, but everything was static. "Welcome to New York," he said as he read the sign on the side of Interstate 287. It was nice to finally pass out of New Jersey. He wondered how many people say the same thing when they leave the sticky taint of the Northeast. He had always hated New Jersey. He got robbed on his travels down to Florida there while in Trenton overnight. 3 bikers robbed him outside his motel room. Luckily, he had locked his car keys in the car, or he would have had to end his trip right there. Now that he was thinking of it, that might be unluckier. Is that a word? He wondered. The snow had picked up and Donnie slowed the truck down, trying to see the road through the Star Wars hyperdrive view between wipers. The package slipped in the seat next to him. He instinctively threw a hand out to keep it from sliding off the worn bench seat. "Stay still," he said to the package, and looked at his wrap job. It wasn't bad, he thought. He looked back up at the road as his tires caught the bumps on the side to wake up drivers that fell asleep. Oh shit! The truck slid back and forth, but he couldn't get it under control. Luckily, there wasn't another vehicle near him, and when the Ford lost traction, it slid off the road alone, catching the bank and flipping down into the ditch about 30 feet from the pavement on its side. Donnie undid his seatbelt and did a quick pat-down to make sure he was okay. With a sigh of relief, he began trying to climb out, using the steering wheel as a step. He flopped out onto the frozen ground, just as the headlights cut out, leaving him in the silence of the snowstorm on the side of the New York State Thruway. He laid there for a moment, in the shock of the cold. His eyes grew heavy, and he started to close them. A sudden gust of wind made the truck creak, which snapped him out of it. He pulled himself up to a sitting position a few feet from the truck. He realized his worn-through Florida hoodie wasn't going to do it. He had to get up to the highway and get help. He scrambled up the embankments towards the road on hands and knees. He could see headlights coming towards him in the distance. A sense of hope filled him, made him warm. He peeked his head over the side of the road, seeing the car getting closer. The headlights were so close together, it must be one of those smart cars, Donnie thought. He rose to unsteady feet and began to wave frantically, hoping they would see him in the near blizzard that wrapped around him like a frozen blanket. There must be 1.5 inches on the road now, he thought. The car veered into the left lane, then the right, then back again to the left. Donnie wondered if the person was drunk. The car was getting closer and he began to get worried that they might hit him. He took a step back off the road and his foot slipped out from under him. He smacked his face on the gravel shoulder and started to slide down the embankment, back to his truck. He started to turn as he slid and slammed into the roof of his truck with his hip, sending pain up his spine. He let out a cry. He was facing down with his head facing the truck. He couldn't see what happened with the car on the highway. He waited for the pain to subside before trying to move. The pain proved too much and he knew he screwed something up. He couldn't even get the strength to turn over. He laid there, helpless for a moment. Then he heard it. The sound of 2 car doors. Maybe they had seen him and stopped. He listened in the snowstorm as the sound of footfalls crunching the powdery snow grew louder. And were those voices he heard? It sounded like a child talking. He strained his ears trying to listen. The voices stopped. He wondered how much snow was on him now, with it whipping around like it was. Maybe they couldn't see him. "Help!" he called out into the night weakly. Then tried again. "Help!" He heard the voices again, but the wind was keeping him from hearing what they were saying. The footfalls came a little closer, but still seemed distant to him. "Someone there?" he called out. This time, he heard them talking. But we must, a childish voice said. No, we don't. We don't have any obligation, another high-pitched voice replied. We can't just leave him there. Sure we can. It's easy. We just go back up the hill and forget this happened, came the response. Donnie winced in pain and forced himself to turn over. He blinked the snow out of his eyes and strained in the night's storm to see who was there. Help me, please, he said. Now it's talking to us, one of the voices said with a sigh. Donnie heard the footfalls grow close, and he could make out two diminutive shadows in the darkness. One of them turned on a flashlight and stuck it in the snow to give them some light. It looks injured, said the first voice Donnie had heard. It might not be in good shape, came the reply. Donnie raised one hand up to block the immediate light and see his would-be rescuers. As his eyes adjusted, he made out the faces of two short people. They both wore green pointed hats. One was holding a black leather bag in his hand that reminded Donnie of the type he'd seen in old movies when doctors made house visits. They both had pointed soft shoes tied to some kind of snowshoe. I mean, it seems like fate brought it to us, the one said. You swerving while getting roadhead is hardly fate, the other replied. Well, either way, this could go quite a ways towards our quota. Let me get the list. Who the fuck are you guys? Donnie asked, exasperated at the conversation. The one holding the bag looked at the other one, who now had a list. He turned it so his companion could see. The one holding the bag nodded and squatted down next to Donnie's face. Ain't it obvious, kid? We ain't your fairy godmothers. We are the dream fulfillers, the ones working behind the scenes to make everything perfect every year. Now be quiet while I make some wishes come true, he said, and pulled a stainless steel saw from the bag. Liver, right? The other nodded. What the hell? Donnie called out. You gonna whine the whole time? The doctor one asked. He placed one hand over Donnie's mouth, and Donnie tried to shout into the night. You ever ask Santa for something impossible for Christmas? Do you have any idea how many people wish for the unfeasible? How the fuck do you think they work? New limbs and organs poof into existence for them? No, we have to go out and harvest the fucking things, and that fat jolly fuck gets all the credit. He ran the saw across Donnie's chest, cutting into the flesh. Donnie wondered if the cold or shock would numb the wound first as he watched the steam rise from his open wound. You see here, kid, we can scratch several wishes off our list. You're doing us a favor, really. I know I don't seem appreciative, but I am, Doc said with another saw across the chest. The other one was returning from the car with a biohazard cooler. Donnie responded, but the doc was still covering his mouth. He stopped sawing and lifted his hand off Donnie's mouth for just a second. What's that, kid? You guys are Santa's elves? Donnie asked and began to laugh. That funny to you? Doc Elf asked. Donnie couldn't help but laugh in the freezing cold at the thought of being murdered by one of Santa's elves. Something not elf-like about us? Doc asked. The other elf climbed onto the truck and peered inside. Are we not fucking full of cheer? Boss? Come here, the one on the truck said to his partner. Doc Boss tossed down the saw in the snow and made his way over to the truck. The other elf had to help him up. What do we got here? He asked and turned back to Donnie. Shit, Donnie said as he realized they had found his package. He scrambled for the saw in the snow. Every movement was a world of pain that tried to envelop him. He managed to get his grip on the saw and tried to rise to his knees. At least then he could look them in the eye. When he turned to face them, both elves looked at him in disgust as they held his package in front of them. She had been so pretty, Donnie said as a tear streaked down his face. I loved her. Is that why you killed her? Doc asked. I gave it to her. The smack she OD'd on. It was my fault, he said, lowering the saw. I couldn't say goodbye yet. She ain't so fresh, kid, Doc said. She been dead a few days? Yeah, 3 now, Donnie responded. Fuck, that's too long for us, he said, and tossed the cellophane-wrapped body down in the snow. He took a few steps closer to Donnie, then saw the saw. What are you going to do with that? You're losing blood every second. There's no way you can win this. Donnie rose to his feet steadily. Come at me, and I'll kick your fucking head off, Donnie said. You know that saw had reindeer ejaculate on it. It's a type of anesthesia. The only reason you're standing right now is pure adrenaline, but it won't last, Doc said and shook his head. Donnie charged and tried to swing the saw at Doc, but lost his grip mid-swing, and the saw dropped helplessly to the ground. He tried to ball up his fist for a backswing, but his legs gave out and he fell back to his knees in the snow. Doc looked him right in the eye. That would be the deer cum working. Stupid move, kid, and punched Donnie in the face. He fell onto his back in the snow. Get over here and hold him down, he called to his partner. Donnie watched on in horror as Doc started to saw with a renewed vigor in his chest. As he lost feeling, a peaceful smile crossed his face. At least he didn't have to face his family after all these years. Or worse yet, hers. The beeping of the machines kept Mary awake. She wouldn't leave her daddy's side, even though things looked grim for him. She had been praying like Mommy asked her to do for weeks, and nothing had changed. She even wrote a letter to the North Pole to ask Santa for help 2 days ago. It was Christmas Eve, and she watched as machines kept her daddy alive. There would be no joy, no cheer, nothing this Christmas. The doctor walked in. He handed her a cup of ice cream, the kind that came with the little wooden spoon, and smiled. Mary, I have some good news about your daddy, he said after glancing at her mom Stacy in the one chair in the room. We found a match. Your daddy is going to get a new liver. It should be here in a few hours. Why don't you two go get some sleep, and we'll let you know when we're ready to go, he said. Mary yawned. Daddy's going to be okay? Yes. It's a Christmas miracle, Stacy said, and took her daughter's hand. Thank you, Doctor. That's great news. Stacy kissed her husband on the forehead and headed for the door. Mary let go of her mom's hand, which made her turn around. Come now, Mary, she said. But Mom, someone is there with Daddy, she said. Just the doc, her mom replied, and pulled Mary out the door, who was looking over her shoulder. After everyone left from behind the curtain, a pointed green hat peeked out and patted the husband's foot on the bed. You're gonna be okay, fella. The small figure jumped down onto the floor and carried his black bag with him out into the hall, unnoticed by all. Xmas at the Psych Ward by Bruce Haney. It was snowing that Christmas Eve, but this didn't bring joy to Caleb because he had been sitting in the psych ward for the last couple of weeks after a failed suicide attempt. He had expected to see his parents that night, but the recent snowstorm had kept them away. He had been surprised that the facility did celebrate the holidays. There was a tree decorated in the common area as well as other non-Christian themed holiday decorations. There were even gifts that had been delivered a few days earlier for the guests,
who were stuck there with no family visiting them. Guests is the term this particular hospital likes to use to refer to their patients. Being a guest was supposed to indicate that you were there temporarily. This was true for most, but not for all the people at Sumter Behavioral Health Center. Caleb was scheduled to be released in a few days, but he wasn't planning on making it through the night. He had pleaded his case to be let out before Christmas. He didn't want to end his life in a hospital. "I'm not like the other crazy people in here. I'm normal," he had pleaded. The term crazy is not accepted around here, and I am pressed to remind you that attempting to take one's life is not the act of a normal mind. His psychiatrist had responded. "It is when you've had the year that I have," Caleb told her. Caleb had always been a bit dramatic, but he was not exaggerating. His year had been truly awful. The first bad thing to happen was that he lost what he considered to be the love of his life. His name was Kyle, and he was a bit out of Caleb's league. While Caleb worked part-time at a failing video game store, Kyle was moving up the ranks at his job and heading toward management. Kyle was also a real looker. Caleb wasn't a slob or ugly, but he was nowhere near as attractive as Kyle. This difference in prospects and his low self-esteem made Caleb resent Kyle, and this resentment led to negativity and jealousy, which created a wedge in their friendship. A wedge that was just big enough for a man named Jacob to squeeze into. Caleb understood this in a way that only a person with poor self-esteem can. Jacob was a 10 and owned a condo before the age of 30. Of course I couldn't compete with that. Who could? Caleb had told his friend Sarah over coffee. "You'll find someone else," she said, trying to console him. "Sure, but he was the one. He was the love of my life, and I'll never, ever be that happy again," Caleb whined. It was hard for Sarah to not roll her eyes at him. Sarah was a little older than he was and a bit wiser. "It's going to be hard," she said. "There will be other guys out there. Not like Kyle, but think of it this way. You could get to fall in love again." "How exciting is that?" Sarah finished. "I don't want to," Caleb told her. "Of course you do. You've always been a romantic. You're going to have more first dates. You get to experience that awkward moment of holding hands for the first time, kisses goodnight, and strange bedfellows," she told him and gave him an exaggerated wink. "Are you talking about my prospects or yours?" Caleb asked, then laughed. Sarah could always make him feel better. They had been best friends since he was a junior and she was a sophomore. Her death 2 months later by a drunk driver was harder on him than losing Kyle. Those events happened before summer, and by the time Christmas came around, he had lost his job, had his car stolen, and totaled by his insurance company. Not because it was wrecked, but because 2 people were found smoking meth and fentanyl inside of it. He didn't have full coverage, so he was out of a vehicle. To cap it off, like a lyric from a sad country song, even his damn dog ran away. The one Kyle had brought home for their 2nd anniversary. Even before this awful year, Caleb had been depressed. He was a cutter, but still, everyone was shocked when he tried to take his life by slashing his wrists. At the health center, he didn't have access to razor blades, so he was going to make a noose out of the sheet from his bed. Before attempting to take his life, he decided to see what the other guests were doing in the common room. This decision to be social possibly saved his unwanted life. Less than an hour later, the killings would begin. Some of the other guests suffered from depression like Caleb, and some others had
other mental challenges that they were going through. But one guest, unbeknownst to the others, was a full-blown homicidal maniac. It was getting late, but a couple of other guests were sitting in the common room watching an old black and white Christmas movie. "Hey, Caleb," John said passively. Caleb liked him okay enough as long as John didn't start talking about politics. "Merry Christmas, Caleb," Ethan said to him. Caleb thought Ethan was a good kid. Sadly, he too was a cutter, and a failed suicide attempt is what landed him in the hospital as well. Though Ethan did admit in group that he didn't want to die. I don't know, I couldn't stand it. I was so invisible to them, I thought if I died, they would care. They couldn't ignore me if they were planning my funeral, Ethan was saying, but was interrupted by, "You pussy," another guest named Tim had said, and then laughed. John had been there too, and laughed. Caleb felt for the kid, and that was why he kicked Tim's chair over, which also didn't help his case for being released before Christmas. When Tim fell to the ground, Mark, another patient who never spoke, started laughing and continued to do so while Tim and Caleb were separated and escorted out. This annoyed Tim, and he screamed at him, "Shut the fuck up, Mark!" Mark continued to laugh to the point that everyone felt unnerved by it. He was laughing because he knew when he started his massacre, Tim would be first. "Merry Christmas, Ethan. How are you doing tonight?" Caleb asked before sitting down in the common area. "I'm doing okay. I wish I was at home. This would have been my last Christmas to spend living at my parents' house," Ethan said. "Yeah? Where do you expect to be next year?" Caleb asked. "University of Oregon," Ethan said. "You're going to college?" Caleb asked. "Well, my parents are paying for it, and I have the grades, and since the whole killing myself thing didn't work out, I should build myself a future," Ethan told Caleb. "You are much smarter at your age than I was, or am now. If I thought like you, I might not be spending my Christmas here with the likes of you two. No offense," Caleb said, and then laughed. John and Ethan laughed too. During their conversation, a nurse named Rob walked into the room. They thought they were going to be told to get to their own rooms, but he made a note of how many guests were in the common area. A few minutes later, Rob walked in with a tray with 4 mugs. "The usual suspects," he said while he handed them each a cup of hot chocolate. The 3 looked up at him with a questioning look. "Merry Christmas. I wanted to do something nice. It's Christmas Eve after all. Some of you guests don't deserve a treat. Some of you are a pain in my ass," Rob said, and then took a drink from his cup. "John, you borderline don't deserve a treat, but you're with good company, so you can reap their reward. It is Christmas and all," Rob said. "It's just hot chocolate. You're not sucking our dicks. Don't feel so high and mighty giving us a 50-cent cup of cocoa," John said. "I can take it back," Rob said calmly, not letting John get to him. No, sorry. Thank you. Merry Christmas," John said. They all sat quietly after that, drinking their hot chocolate and watching the old Christmas movie. Then they heard the screaming. Rob was the first up and the first to run down the hall to find out what was going on. Billy, the other nighttime nurse, came out from the office and beat him to the room. Inside was an older gentleman named Ed, who had been in and out of places like this his whole life. He had a bit of a violent past, always attacking the people close to him, but never enough to do actual jail time. Ed was screaming because his roommate, Tim, was lying in his bed, with his throat slit and his face slashed all up. Rob was the senior nurse there and quickly took charge of the situation. "What happened here? Who did this?" Rob asked. I don't know. He was like this when I came back from the bathroom, Ed said. John, Caleb, Ethan, back to your rooms. Caleb, take Ed with you, and none of you let anyone except for the two of us in. Billy, go back to the office and call 911. I'll look for the killer, Rob ordered. What if he tries to attack you? Billy asked. I've been taking self-defense classes for years. Do you think I would work here around these crazies without some way of protecting myself? Rob asked. Right, Billy said. You haven't been taking classes like I told you, have you? Rob asked. Well, Billy stammered. You fucking rookie. Just get to the damn phone, Billy, Rob shouted. Billy ran off and John, Ethan, Ed, and Caleb stared at Rob. Get to your rooms, now, Rob said. They all turned and left. Rob yelled after them. Sorry for saying crazies. Don't tell my boss, please. Rob then went on down the hall to look for signs of the killer. John went to his room. The doors could only be locked with a key, so he decided that he would push his bed up against the door. He didn't know that the killer was hiding under his bed, and as soon as he got close enough, he heard snickering. And then, before he could react, a hand with a stolen kitchen knife stabbed through his left shoe. The cheap hospital-issued shoes did nothing to hinder the blade, though it did keep his now severed middle two toes close to where they had once belonged. John then fell to the floor, and the killer took the opportunity to slash his throat. As the blood sprayed, Mark laughed harder and harder. Billy heard the laughter, but before he could make it out of his office, the killer was there. Happy holidays, Mark said. Once Billy was taken care of, Mark went to the next phase of his plan. He knew that the landline phone was dead. He had severed it hours ago. He knew which line it was because he had severed it months earlier when he first came up with the plan. Everyone had made a big stink about it. A technician had to come out and fix it, and they lost dessert for 2 days since no one would admit to cutting the line. Once in the office, the killer found what he hoped he would find in there. Both nurses' cell phones, charging. He had made a mental note after weeks of watching their patterns that it was around this time each night that they plugged their phones in to charge after a shift's worth of TikTok watching and Instagramming. He acted quickly and methodically. He took each phone and shoved his knife through the screens. He then took the useless landline phone and smashed it against the server equipment that provided internet to the building. With that done, he looked around the room for other opportunities to add to his chaos. He didn't find much, but hanging on the coat rack, he saw something that he hoped he would find. He laughed the whole time as he grabbed the Santa Claus costume off the rack and put it on. The plan was going better than he had imagined. Luck was on his side. Caleb had dragged Ethan and Ed to his room. Caleb's roommate was sitting up in bed. What the fuck is going on out here? Steve yelled. Steve was at the health center because he attempted to light his former workplace on fire because he didn't receive a Christmas bonus. He didn't quite understand that former employees don't typically get Christmas bonuses. Steve was a bit of a hothead and was fired after he threw his boss's world's best boss mug at his own boss's head. People are getting killed, Steve. That is what the fuck is going on, Caleb explained. For real? Steve asked Ed. Ed was older and Steve trusted him. Ed shook his head up and down. This calmed Steve down. Who? Steve asked. Tim, at least. His throat was slashed, Ed said. I've heard 2 other screams since. I think possibly Billy too, Caleb added. Fuck. Tim got out in a couple of days, not that he wanted to. Billy was kind of a prick though, Steve finished. Don't speak ill of the dead, Ethan whispered. Is Rob okay? Steve asked. Rob was a good guy. He had to make everyone follow the rules, but he did it in a respectful way, and he was respected for it. As far as we know, Caleb said. At that moment, Rob had returned to the main corridor, not finding any signs of the killer. Rob wished there was more staff there. Billy and himself were it. Usually there were another two, but the holidays were always light. The staff wanted to be home with their families, and each year many guests were released early to make that possible. As soon as Rob made it back to the guest wing, he heard the laughter. And then, the killer in the stolen Santa Claus outfit stepped out of the office. "What are you doing?" Rob asked. The killer just laughed. Are you wearing my Santa Claus outfit?" Rob asked. For the last 4 years, Rob had worn that costume every Christmas morning at the facility. Every year, the guests would make fun of him for it. But he could tell from some that they did appreciate the effort. The killer didn't respond to his first question, so he asked another. "What's going on in here?" Rob asked. No response. "Did you kill Tim?" Rob asked. The killer shook his head. Yes. Then made a cross with his 2 index fingers. Rob was confused until the killer then held up 2 fingers. "You killed 2 others?" Rob asked. The killer laughed, then decided to sprint towards Rob while pulling out the knife that he had tucked into the waistband of the Santa suit. "Get away from me!" Rob yelled. Back in Caleb's room, they had been listening to the exchange, and when they heard the killer go after Rob, without even thinking, Ethan pushed open the door. Caleb followed, stopping just long enough to grab a chair. Without knowing it, they were directly in the killer's path, who immediately adjusted his aim and went to stab Ethan. Caleb pushed Ethan out of the way. Ethan fell to the floor and rolled away unscathed. Caleb wasn't as lucky. The killer slashed the knife at him, cutting his wrist. Caleb watched as the blood from his arm hit the polished floor, and for a moment was taken back to a few weeks ago, when he was the one spilling his blood. It was a weird sensation. Caleb didn't feel scared. He felt violated. Cutting his wrist was something he did, not something that was done to him. Caleb was filled with anger and swung the chair at the pseudo-Santa as hard as he could. Then again, the killer held his arms up to protect himself from the blows, and then ran away. Once the killer was gone, Caleb looked over to Rob. "You okay?" he asked. Rob and Ethan looked him up and down. He was bleeding heavily, and they just witnessed him going primal while beating on the killer. "Are you okay?" Rob asked. "I'm fine," Caleb said while taking his hand and rubbing his hair back. Blood dripped onto his face. Caleb then held out his arm and looked at the cut again. "Maybe not," Caleb said. Rob ran off and moments later was back with a full first aid kit. If you're going to get attacked, let it be in a hospital-type situation. Their first aid kits are usually well stocked. A moment after Rob finished fixing him up, the lights went out. "He must have gotten to the breaker box," Rob said cheerfully. "Why is that good?" Ethan asked. "The box is located in the stairwell at the end of the west hallway," Rob said while he got up and started walking. "And?" Caleb asked. "He's far enough away that it should be safe to go to my office and grab a flashlight and call the police, if Billy hasn't already," Rob said. In the office, the 3 of them felt around for anything that could be a weapon. Rob eventually found a flashlight in a drawer. When he turned it on, it revealed that the stuff they were walking in was blood. The flashlight also helped them see where the blood had come from. Some was from Billy's lifeless body, while the rest came from Billy's head, which had been cut off and thrown onto the desk with little to no regard. With the flashlight, it was also easy to find the useless phone. Rob then went for his own, which he found next to Billy's. Both destroyed. Okay, don't panic, Rob said to himself. If we can get to the breaker and turn it back on, we can use a computer to reach out to the police. There has to be a way to do that, right? Rob asked the two. Caleb frowned and pointed to the modem and the internet equipment that had been destroyed. What are we going to do? Ethan asked. I don't know. We could try to grab the others and then run outside, but we're 2 miles from anything and it's snowing pretty heavily outside, Rob said. Maybe we could just hide, Ethan suggested. Or we could all come out into the open, Caleb said. You think? Rob asked. I think our strength is in our numbers, which we won't have if we don't act quickly. It's easy for him to take us out one by one, but when he attacked and there were 3 of us there, we walked away. Scathed, but we did walk away, Caleb explained. The 3 of them walked back to Caleb's room to grab Steve and Ed. You have to come with us, Caleb told them. I ain't going nowhere. We're safe in this room, Ed said. Do you think so? How do you think Tim was killed? In one of these rooms. We need to band together, and we need a spot where we have room to fight, Caleb explained. Caleb was persuasive, and as a group, they went to each room looking for other survivors. They found John's dead body in one room. They found 2 other dead guests, each with a pillow over their head, so they couldn't scream. He was going room to room, Rob said. Maybe he's back in one, snuck back to them when we were in the office, and now he's just waiting to jump out and stab one of us in the throat, Ed said. So we stay away from the rooms, Ethan said. No, Caleb replied. Then what? Ed asked. We lock them, Rob explained, understanding what Caleb was getting at. Every one of them, Caleb finished. They went methodically down the corridor, locking the doors with Rob's keys. After each door was locked, one of them would put their ear and listen for any sign of life. Nothing was heard until they locked the second-to-last door. Ethan then put his ear to the door and heard a noise inside that he couldn't make out. Someone's in this room, Ethan whispered to the rest of them. Whose room is that? Steve asked. It's been empty. Has been for a week, Rob said. Then it has to be the killer, Caleb replied. Let's get him then, Ed said. It's safer to just lock him up. There's no exit from that room, Rob explained. Then, the last door that they were about to check flung open. Ed was the closest to the door, so he was the one to be stabbed by the killer in the Santa Claus suit. To the common room, Rob yelled. When the killer pulled out his knife, Caleb grabbed Ed and dragged him. Ed was screaming, "Don't leave me!" The killer followed and continued to stab poor Ed with every step they made. Eventually, Ed's body went limp, and there was nothing for Caleb to do but drop it. The killer then swung his knife at Caleb, just barely missing his throat. "Why are you doing this?" Caleb yelled. The killer laughed. "Mark?" Caleb asked. The killer swung his knife at Caleb again. He had to run to the common room after that, and by the time he got there, the others had gathered what weapons they could find, which wasn't very much. Ethan was smart and grabbed the nutcracker that was out as a Christmas decoration. Rob was practical and grabbed a chair, while Steve yielded the heaviest Christmas package he could find under the tree, which wasn't all that heavy. To get away from the attack, Caleb ran behind the tree. Rob swung the chair, which the killer grabbed with his free hand. Rob looked at the killer, shocked that his knife-wielding Santa Claus was able to stop the chair's momentum with only one hand. Rob thought that's not just strength. That is the power of being truly crazy. The killer then put the knife in his pocket and grabbed the chair with his other hand and made moves to fling Rob. Steve made his way over to hit the killer Santa with the package, but this had little effect. Ethan had better luck, smacking him on the shoulder with the heavy wood nutcracker. The killer screamed out in pain and dropped his hold on the chair. While this was going on, Caleb was trying to figure out what he could do to help the situation. And finally, he found his weapon of choice. It was unconventional, to say the least. Caleb grabbed the wreath that hung on the wall and waited for an opportunity, which came suddenly after Ethan hit the killer another time in the head. The killer responded by pulling his knife back out and slashing Ethan across the chest. He then turned around and ran. Caleb was furious as he thought about the future that young Ethan could have once he was out of there. Caleb ran after him and put the wreath over the killer's head and then used it to swing him into the wall, repeatedly. During the struggle, the killer stabbed Caleb in the thigh, but Caleb hardly noticed. Eventually, the killer went limp from his head, repeatedly hitting the wall. Caleb then grabbed the knife from the killer's lifeless body. He was still furious and made moves to turn the killer over to slash his throat. Rob was taking care of Ethan's wounds during this, and Steve walked over to watch. But Caleb was no killer and had a change of heart. "I can't do it," Caleb said. And then he stood up to check on Ethan. "He's gonna make it. He just barely nicked him," Rob told him. "Give me your keys," Caleb said. Rob unhooked them from the loop on his pants and threw them to Caleb. "I think he's dead, but just in case we should lock him up," Caleb explained to Steve. Steve and Caleb then each grabbed a side of the wreath that was around his neck and dragged him to the room where they had heard the sound. Caleb handed the keys over to Steve to unlock it, and Caleb held the knife out, just in case. When they opened the door, they heard what had been making the sound inside. The music came from a radio. Caleb and Steve laughed, then dragged the killer into the room. Momentarily, they were distracted as the song faded down and the radio DJ came on. "Well, here we are. It's 12:01 and it's officially Christmas. Merry Christmas to all of you KWHG listeners. Hope you were good and didn't make it onto Santa's naughty list. This is your pal, Big Bobby, and the Christmas classics are going to keep on a-coming. Here's Deck the Halls," he said. And the song began. That was the moment that the killer tried to leap up and grab the knife back from Caleb. Without thinking, Caleb stabbed him in the throat. The killer stared at him with hatred in his eyes. Caleb then twisted the blade, and a moment later, all life left the killer. Steve reached down and pulled off the beard and hat to reveal what Caleb had already figured out. It was Mark, who would never laugh his crazy laugh again. With that done, Caleb got up, walked over to the radio, and turned up the volume. As they walked back to Ethan and Rob, the song continued. During the struggle of the night, Caleb couldn't wait for it to be over, for everybody to be safe, so he could go back to his room and kill himself. And now that he had the killer's knife, he was more prepared than before. He was originally going to hang himself with his sheet, but now that it was over, he just wanted to check on his friends. He had seen enough death. It had been a terrible year, but fighting for his and other people's lives made Caleb finally see value in life. So, he let go of the knife, and it fell to the floor.
And that's tonight's binge, my spookies. A trail of red in the snow, a Santa you never want in your chimney, Krampus hitching a ride in human skin, machines learning to murder merrily, and Christmas Eve in a hospital where the tinsel hangs over restraints. Remember, this is not a one-off nightmare. Every Saturday until New Year's, another long, cozy stretch of holiday horror will drop into your feed. More ghosts, more storms, more reasons to watch the Christmas tree lights instead of the clock. And the fear doesn't stop there. Tomorrow, something uninvited slides back into the stream. Unknown broadcast. Those crackling old-time horrors that sound like they've waited for decades just to whisper to you. Monday on Terrifying and True, we climb into the high Alps to meet Frau Perchta and her Perchten, the Christmas spirits who check your work, your manners, your supper, and, if you fail their tests, are said to unwrap you from your throat to your belly and stuff you with straw and stone instead of mercy. And of course, on Wednesday, we have a brand new holiday terror tale, Milk, Cookies, and Krampus by Rob Fields. Back on a snowy Strickfield farm where two girls think the worst thing that can happen is coal in their stockings. Until the family dog steals Santa's treats, the wind rears up into a sudden blizzard, and something with skeletal reindeer lands in the yard, dragging a sack that's never empty for long. So keep your headphones charged, keep the cocoa hot, and please remember, my spookies, there's a new compilation waiting for you to unwrap every Saturday. Until then, stay warm, stay wicked, and as always, stay spooky.